girls were growing up in Uganda, and whenever they used to arrive, they had SA written on them, and we knew they'd come from South Africa, but in fact, of course, it's University of South Australia.
Yeah, and they are leading the team race, this bunch of youngsters, as well. It might change today, it's the toughest day, but so far they've led from the day this race began. We wish them well. Big day for the University of South Australia. These four are trying to come together. The big man there, Janssen van Rensburg, bringing across Arnaud Cortaille of France. So 4 good riders here, 4 men who might take this group clear. They're saying 12 seconds, and it's probably about right, just peeping around the camera there. But they're shutting down, I think. I think this is going to go away.
Look at the length of the main field, as they've certainly not giving that breakaway an easy departure off the front end. This is magnificent wine country here, left and right of the road. McLaren Vale.
Oh, beautiful reds here. And there's the confirmation of that lead group. Will Clark is getting stronger every day. Attacked yesterday to no avail, but at least he was up there. And Perrault, Cortaille and Janssen van Rensburg. With a name like Jacques Janssen van Rensburg, our caption generators really could do with a 56cm screen.
Yes, and in fact, there's another Janssen van Rensburg races on Team Dimension Data. He was actually down on the start list, but was replaced at the very last minute by Jaco Venter, who's actually the South African national champion. That gap is no longer 12 seconds, Phil, and they're not giving them a free pass right for the moment.
Yes, and contrary to popular belief around the world, Jacques and Reinhardt are not related, yet they have the same name, Janssen van Rensburg. Still a few boys deciding it may be time to bridge this gap and support the break, and it could make for a very interesting formation. Not surprisingly, BMC on the front, of course. They're looking after their man. They'll have the numbers on the handlebars of the riders. They will mark very closely today and make sure that they all get a straight shot at the climb. Sky now getting in on the act as well as they start a move here and pushing on. It's not Ian Stenhouse, that's Luke Rowe, who's trying to get away too. This breakaway is not safe after all.
But there's a split of riders, about 7-8 riders coming across. If you get a large breakaway group on a stage like this, it's very difficult for the main field to control it. And that's why I think we will see very shortly a big reaction. Look at the size of the group that's coming across.
I think they're playing a few tactics here now, with Movistar also moving up to the front. That is a big bunch. If that bunch goes, then alarm bells might start to ring here. We're on the opening lap of 3 circuits around Snapper Point, overlooking the beautiful Southern Ocean on the Fleurieu Peninsula. Gradually all coming together. As Jack Bowers off to the left, wearing a red number, in fact, as the most competitive rider yesterday. Oh, he was unlucky. Caught just a couple of kilometres from the line. Story of Jack's life.
Well, that's a very large lead group. It's 14 riders have got themselves into that leading group. And it looked to me as if I saw one of the riders from Team Sky trying to integrate that group. They're obviously also, Phil, that's Luke Rowe on the front, on the right-hand side for Team Sky, looking over his shoulder. And the little sign he's indicating there is to the other guys to come on, let's all collaborate, we can work on this one.
Year down the road, we're back in Wollonga for the first time in those 12 months. And they start to circumnavigate. They'll do a complete turn back on themselves here for the first 3 laps, and then they will go straight up the hill.
That, in the polka dot jersey, is Thomas de Gent. He's wearing the leader's jersey in the King of the Mountains competition, sponsored by Subaru, and he has exactly the same points as Richie Porte. Now, he would like this breakaway to succeed because he knows that there's 2 mountain points available today. The first time up Wollonga Hill, but then the second time up as well, and that's going to be one of the guys who'll be fighting out the overall classification, and very likely Richie Porte.
Yes, well, he's making a hard day of it because he doesn't get any points in the King of the Mountains till the first time up Wollonga Hill, which is a long way away. At 129 kilometres that would be. But sometimes you have to gamble the long breakaway. All turn at the Old Bush Inn. Heading back away again now. After 3 laps we go straight on and up the hill.
breakaway's been pulled back into the fold very smartly. I think once they started to see 14 riders, you see the congestion at the top of the hairpin, and that's why it's always more sensible to ride at the front end of the peloton, because you get the concertina effect at the back there. You have to slow down an awful lot more and then accelerate very, very quickly to try and keep in contact with the main field.
It's back down the other side as we head away from Wollonga. We're going back out. We're seeing a lot of the opening day of the course, but one man who's seen it all and done some terrific previews of the race is Robbie McEwen, 12 times a stage winner of this race. No man better to explain the day's route than Robbie.
The biggest day in Australian cycling. The stage tours the southern coast of Adelaide, then builds to a crescendo at its hilltop finish, where the lead has changed hands several times over the past 5 years. With 5 stages almost complete, by the time the riders reach the foot of Wollonga Hill the final time, they will have already raced 700 kilometres and climbed more than 9,000 metres in vertical ascent. That's more elevation than Mount Everest. Although he's never won the race overall, yet, Richie Porte is the undisputed king of Wollonga Hill, having won the last 3 years in a row on this iconic climb.
He's pulled it off. Well done, Richie Porte.
Experience counts on this 3 kilometre long ascent. Porte's 2016 effort was his fastest ever at 6 minutes and 15 seconds. And if he can replicate that, he'll take a lot of beating. The opening 3 flat 40 kilometre laps around McLaren Vale provide an opportunity for a breakaway to build up a lead over the peloton and fight it out at the intermediate sprints. They're sharing the prizes out on the road. Looks like Greg Henderson is going to come through here in first place. But the teams of the GC contenders are always intent on bringing everything back together. As they approach the climb, they'll tackle twice. Crosswinds through the vineyards are the enemy of most, but it provides a chance for well-organised teams to catch out their rivals and cause a split in the field on the approach to Wollonga. Missing the split means you're chasing and wasting vital energy. Wollonga Hill is a very tactical climb, and efforts need to be dosed carefully. Go too soon, you'll blow up and get spat out the back. Go too late and you'll never get back on terms. Porte has always made his winning attack around 1 kilometre to go after the steepest part of this climb, which is here in this bend, where everybody is on the limit. It's where the best climbers make their move. In 2016, Porte made several accelerations to offload his final adversary, hitting over 800 watts as his heart pounded at an astonishing 198 beats a minute. The crown is up for grabs again. Can Porte make it 4 from...
Sweeping across the beautiful McLaren Vale here now as the riders try to establish a breakaway. 4 men have got together just now. The peloton showing signs of desisting, and so it might be they will go clear. Jack Bauer, Jeremy Maison, Thomas de Gent, and the horse himself, Will Clark, number 76.
Jack Bauer wearing the red number on his back, joint most aggressive, most competitive rider yesterday. That was pretty nice that he was getting congratulations from our motorbike pilot there for the ride that he did yesterday, and that, of course, Patrice Diallo.
Yes, our Frenchman who's done it all on the camera, driving our cameramen around the world, including the Tour de France. A brilliant motorcyclist, of course, you've got to be. And you've also got to earn the confidence of the race. They want to know that you know what you're doing, and that's it's very, very important. Here's Richie Porte here now, looking around over his shoulder. He's got 2 teammates behind him. They'll stay very close to him until they have to release him on the hill, simply because they don't want him getting involved in any silly falls on the way up to Wollonga today. If you can catch the bandaged man, I just did. Gorka Izagirre, his left leg is heavily bandaged from that crash running down into Victor Harbour, but he's still sitting on second place. And the way he climbed up Paracombe to get that second place, who knows? We don't know how badly he's injured. Will he make a run for it? 1:35. There he is. You see his bandaged left leg and also his left arm, and you can't see what's underneath, but he have a heavily bandaged left shoulder as well. He really went down with a thump.
Well, as he walked to the sign-in this morning, he was certainly looking very confident. He had a game face on, and he'll be trying to allow. He's definitely going to be stiff from an accident like that, and he will try and hope that his muscles will warm up a fraction over this first hour and a half of the race, and he will want to try and challenge. But the way he was the last man standing when it came to that attack of Richie Porte when we went to the summit of that hilltop finish to Paracombe.
Well, it's nice that his team is guiding him up to the side of Richie Porte here. The first rider is Marc Soler, and they're bringing him nicely into position. That's Victor de la Parte, and putting the whole team around him, bringing him right up to Richie Porte. His job is to follow Porte and hopefully follow him on the climb, because everybody knows Porte will attack on the Wollonga Hill.
And one thing we tend to forget about Movistar, we talk a lot about Movistar when it comes to the stage races like the Tour of Italy and the Tour de France, but they are a team that's very competitive throughout the whole of the season. They are in fact the winners last year of the team competition at the World Tour.
That's the old faithful pacemaker, the Frenchman Amiel Moignard, setting the pace at the front for BMC, heading up towards the ridge of hills here, which eventually, of course, we'll climb on the Wollonga Hill. This time they'll get away with it. We haven't had our little tour yet around Aldinga Beach. It's beautiful, not far away now. Chance to take in the blue waters of the Southern Ocean and the sandy beaches. And the far end of Snapper Point on lap number 2 is where we have the sprint for the II-Net sprint competition, being led, of course, by 3-time stage winner this week, Caleb Ewan in the red jersey. Gap represents 300 meters, 25 seconds. Computers are marvelous things, aren't they, when they get it right?
But just looking at the peloton, they're not yet given the freedom to that breakaway group, because it's still only hovering at 25 seconds. And on these long roads, on this opening circuit around Aldinga, they will have that breakaway group in the sights all of the time. And it is interesting to see that BMC are doing all of the pacemaking right from the get-go.
Little bit of a way yet before we get down to Aldinga Beach. We make a couple of turns and then we'll see the beauty of South Australia's coastline. There's about 3,800.
Great to have your company on the Queen stage of the Santos Tour Down Under, the penultimate stage, the Bike Exchange Stage 5, McLaren Vale to Wollonga Hill, over 151.5 Ks, and there are our riders. Big day ahead of them, and will Richie Porte win today and win the Ochre jersey? Well, of course, we still have tomorrow's stage, but he's got a big battle on his hands today as to what he does. Now, he'd be a bit nervous. There'll be plenty of other guys that'd be a bit nervous. Let's get to Robbie McEwen, who had a chat with him on the start line.
Here in McLaren Vale with the race leader, Richie Porte. Richie, this is the day where you've always been trying to chase down a gap. Now it's defence, but how much defending mixed with an attack, prestigious stage to be won?
Well, I mean, attack's the best form of defence, isn't it? But I know this climb well. I think, won the last 3 times on it, so I'm quietly confident. But there's a lot of things that can happen before. But the team's been fantastic around me all week, and I just really like to finish it off for the boys.
We will try today. It's a beautiful race, beautiful atmosphere as well. For sure, the climb is full of people. So yeah, I'm happy. We will try something today for keep our position in the podium. It's important, and you never know. Maybe Richie is not really good legs today, but I'm not sure. He's looking really well. But we will try always. The more important is crossing the finish line, and you are satisfied. I give my maximum. So this is for us today.
In your mind, who do you have to be most wary of on this climb today?
Look, I think Sergio now, even though he's quite a way down on GC, he's absolutely flying. So him and then Chavez, obviously. Izagiri, we're not sure. He had a big crash the other day, so you just don't know how he is. But you know, it's so tight anyhow that there's just you're going to have to ride to the finish, and be nice to try and take some more time.
Richie Porte told me that he thinks you are the big favourite for today's stage. Does it give you big confidence?
Yeah, okay. No pressure, no. It's light condition, no. It's 1 kilometer is full effort. The team is strong. One big support for me. Okay. I drink for win today.
Everybody's saying, oh, Richie can't be beaten now because of your record on Wollonga Hill, but 20 seconds, when you know there's a 10-second bonus, is not a lot, is it?
No, I mean, it's not, and it's, you know, it's a nice position to be in, and I think, you know, thinking back to Wednesday, winning the stage, I know where my climbing's at, so, you know, it's still a different situation to be in this year compared to the last 3 years.
And we are joined by a man that has done this stage many, many times. Jens Voigt, how are you? Look, we've just heard from a number of the stars there. What's your take on today? Can Richie Porte be beaten?
Absolutely, he can win, but I think also he has the right to play it safe. He is in a comfortable lead. He just needs to stay with him. He doesn't need to attack and win. Another stage run would be a nice bonus for him, but it's not up to him to win the stage today, so he can go fairly relaxed into it.
It's a difficult science, though, isn't it? He's got the 20-second lead, and if, say, Chavez or one of the other guys manages to win, they do get the 10-second time bonus, and if it's close enough, it becomes a points thing tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think we want to see that, like having it to be down to the sprint on the last day. Plus, them two are like not world-class sprinters, so I think it will all be played out today, and it's a comfortable lead. It's not written in stone yet that Richie's going to win, but it's a comfortable lead, and I would put my money on him.
Okay, what about nutrition today? It's the longest day, so they won't be out there eating kebabs. There's the bananas and nutrition bars. Give us a bit of an insight into what the guys will take on board today.
A good thing today is the stage being held on laps. They come by the feeding station, the water station every lap, so they can grab all they need. It will be a good mix between some of the you know, old-fashioned bananas, but also some little fruit cakes, some power bars, some gels. Gels are just easier to digest. You know, you don't need to chew them, just squeeze them in, and they're in your bloodstream already. So I think they will have to pay attention to the drinking because it's another hot day. But yeah, get enough nutrition in. It's another day to come tomorrow.
Do you get the chance to enjoy the view? Because it really is like a postcard, isn't it, as you come along the beach?
Well, I must say, even though I was racing some years back then, I still had a little look at the ocean, at the beach, and to the surfers out there. It's fantastic along the beach. I know, even in the race, I couldn't help to have a quick look at it.
It's absolutely beautiful. And what about the hill? We do the hill twice, in contrast to some of the hills, obviously, that they race in Europe and parts of South America. What about Wollonga Hill?
It's a fantastic climb. Plus, it's an iconic climb of the Tour Даун Андер. Everybody who talks Tour Даун Андер knows Wollonga Hill. It's like Tour de France feeling up there. You know, we got like hundreds of thousands of people up here. It's a fantastic. The riders love coming up here. And the good thing is the fans here are really enthusiastic, but they also show a lot of discipline. They don't run on the road. They stay on the side of the road and cheer the riders on. It's all in all, it's a fantastic finish up here always.
All right, Jens, good on you, mate. Jens Voigt, of course, a man that raced this race so many times, and there are the beautiful dolphins. Jens would have just peered across there and looked at a few of the dolphins if you're in the peloton, wouldn't you?
Clearly I would. I would go, oh, looking at the dolphins in the water.
Nice? My legs are killing me, but those dolphins are absolutely beautiful. Jens Voigt, an ambassador, of course, of the Santos Tour Down Under, along with Anna Mears. We've got a great day of racing on the way. This is Channel 9's Wide World of Sport, Santos Tour Down Under. See you in a second.
When I was 6 years old, I broke my leg.
Two different cops. Martin Riggs, we're gonna make a great team.
I was running from my...
Just enjoy a long lunch along the famous McMurtry Mile wine strip, where food and art are nestled together in perfect harmony. And the bunches in perfect harmony just now are sitting some 2 minutes and 20 seconds of the latest time check behind those four runners.
They need more than that if they're going to hope to survive. We've seen this over the years, and we've seen it come to a sad end for the breakaway artists. But somebody's got to do it, and it looks like Thomas de Kent would at least like to stay away till over the top of the climb first time.
At BMC, we can see them doing the pacemaking. They've got to be very careful today how they actually dose out their effort, because they're going to need to have a couple of riders up alongside Richie Porte when it comes to the final lap, because if they use all of their energy and we hit Wollonga Hill, then all of a sudden Richie Porte becomes isolated. There's 14 guys queuing up behind Richie Porte within 30 seconds to try and dethrone him off the top spot, and he would love this year, I think, Phil, to get himself the overall victory. He's been so close on many occasions. 3 times he's finished second, and he's always lost out for a couple of seconds. I just think today it's actually probably more complicated for Team BMC to be on the defensive on a stage where normally their man Richie Porte is an attacker.
They'll have to hold back his enthusiasm. I think he lost this race last year to Simon Gerrans by 9 seconds. The year before he lost by 2 seconds. At the moment he leads by 20. As we continue to come away now from Snappers Point with the peloton. You probably saw all the people watching on the seafront there. All the holiday homes jam-packed. This is the time when real estate goes up in this part of the world to watch the Santos Tour Down Under come through. It's a race which started back in 1999. It has caught the public imagination. It started, by the way, at the decision of the people who voted on what they wanted to see when the state lost the Formula One Grand Prix, and they chose a cycle race like the Tour de France. The organisation of the Tour de France is here, by the way. Christian Prudhomme, the race director, arrived a couple of days ago. Once we're off the course here, they're getting full coverage today on Channel 9 television in Australia, and that is all they have to do, is go back inside, get the Barbies going, and enjoy the race until he comes back past their front door.
I think just talking to Christian Prudhomme the other day, Phil, the thing that amazes him about these races around the world outside of the Tour de France is, in fact, the number of people who actually come to these bike races on their bicycles and enjoy riding out to the event to watch it and riding back to the hotel. And it really has been an amazing event to promote the tourism of South Australia.
Well, last year the number of spectators watching this race fell just short of 900,000, and everybody's hoping this year it's going to hit the magic 1 million mark. 2:02 the gap as they leave the beach. This is now the undulations too as they come through here.
That's all because of the work being done by Team BMC. It went up to 2 minutes 20 seconds. It's come back down to just outside of the 2-minute margin. They've got their first chance to have a look at the route. You can see the little pimple at the first on the left hand side there. That's once the riders come into Wollonga, and then the flat part when they go out towards the beach. But it's all really about the 2 M's towards the right hand side of that profile. That's Wollonga Hill. First time up, then a fast descent down the other side where the riders touch 80 to 90 kilometers an hour, and then that big violent effort up to the top M there, and that's the summit of Old Wollonga Hill for the final time. And that's where we will probably get a pretty good indication of what the podium is going to look like in Adelaide tomorrow.
Being pulled out in a long thin line, so maybe they're deciding they're not going to let these guys run too far. Will Clark at the back, Jack Bauer at the front. Jack Bauer, the Kiwi on the front there, New Zealand rider. He's ridden the Tour de France 3 times, but he's crashed out in spectacular style twice now. And he's only managed to finish it once in 2014, in fact. Had some real bad luck. In the first year he rode, he crashed out 2 days from the end when he came off a corner straight into a barbed wire fence. That's all I can tell you. It was not a pretty sight for Jack, but he's a bounce back. He's a great bike rider. His saddest moment, probably as far as victory is concerned, came on 2014 when he was caught by 20 meters to go on the 15th day of the race into Nîmes down in the south of France. He'd been in the lead for 222 kilometers. He lost the stage by 20 meters. I'm not kidding. We were commentating on that stage. If our commentary could have willed him to get to that line, I think it would have worked. It was such a sad sight.
And if you go back and have a look at the result, he still finished inside of the top 10 on that stage.
But he had no choice. They didn't catch him till they were 2 seconds from the line. 2:20 the gap. It's eased up again as we swing away from Aldinga Beach, heading out now back towards McLaren Vale, where the race started this morning at about 10 minutes past the hour. They've been going 45 minutes. It's turning out to be a lovely, lovely day here. Summer's day in South Australia, 24 degrees Celsius. While Europe shivers, the Europeans in this race can rejoice on beautiful warm sunshine today. 123 kilometers still to ride. Here's the peloton, wisely taking plenty of fluid on board. A lot of work to be done today for Team BMC before they release their secret weapon. Well, there's not much of a secret about Richie Porte right now. He's leading this race.
But I still think, Phil, that he's got to be very careful in the way that he uses his team, Team BMC, because one team we've not seen very much of course, is Orica Scott.
World of Sports, Bike Exchange Stage 5, and every picture's a pretty one, isn't it, today? McLaren Vale to Wollonga Hill, 151.5k, the longest of all of our stages here. And Richie Porte, of course, in Oka. He's won here the last 3 years. Today, arguably his biggest test because he's right in the middle. And, of course, we have Brian Cookson, the head of the UCI, the president of the UCI here, and that just shows what this race is, doesn't it?
Yeah, it shows the significance of this event, Tim, that we've got the UCI president here, and amongst others, Christian Prudhomme, the director of the Tour de France, along with the world champion, of course, in Peter Sagan. So this event is very important, obviously.
All right, let's talk tactics, Rob, because it's very much... You could almost split it right down the middle of this race, could you? Because you've got the beach side, then get up the hill.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tale of two stages moulded into one with those flat laps around Aldinga Beach. We've got the sprint points on offer, but then, of course, the 2 laps around Wollonga Hill. So what we often see is the breakaway getting away on the flat roads, and sometimes the motivation for that is, of course, to try and win the stage. But for a guy like Thomas de Gendt, he's equal leader in the King of the Mountains competition with Richie Porte. He knows he's got to get off the front and win that first KOM. So he will be attacking like anything. And he was right on cue. I picked him this morning to be the first attacker, and there he was off the front. He's very reliable. He's got to win that first KOM and then rely on Richie Porte not winning the second one, which is only 150 metres before the actual stage finish. So de Gendt, he is throwing everything at it. He's got some good allies out there, Will Clark, and also yesterday's attacker, Jack Bauer, just unstoppable out there again. But that's the first part of the stage. After that, then the real grind starts.
Well, Richie Porte won't have the KOM in his mind, will he? He obviously just wants to get in the right position, whether it's winning this race or just behind, to protect what he has. But it's got to be aggressive, doesn't it? You can't ease off.
No, we know that Richie's a firm leader in this race, but does he know any other way to ride old Wollonga Hill? He's been unbeaten on this hilltop finish of Wollonga Hill. So he's got to get out there and ride assertively, ride aggressively. He doesn't need to be the first attacker, because in the past he's been looking to make up time, win the stage, but try and improve his general classification. This time it'll be more of a reaction, but he can't afford to let anybody go. There's a 10-second time bonus at the finish. So whoever goes, he's got to go with them, and he'll be under fire from the Colombians. A lot of guys are saying, including Richie, that Sergio Henao is one of the big favourites for this stage. So Richie is very wary. And like the old saying goes, sometimes the best defence is attack.
The other point that we'd have to make is Esteban Chavez. Like I think a few of the boys said earlier, we haven't seen a lot of him, but he's still only 22 seconds adrift, and he comes into this race with a great reputation after an enormous 12 months. And for him, this is just like walking up the backyard. They're not big climbs.
They're not huge mountains, and Esteban Chavez, along with Henao, the other Colombian, and well, there's quite a few other guys will be knocking on the door, because this general classification could really undergo a massive shuffle. Richie's got a good buffer of 20 seconds over Izaguirre in second, who I think will struggle with his injuries from his crash a couple of days ago on the way to Victor Harbour. But for the rest, there's guys like Lachlan Morton, the Aussie from Dimension Darty. He'll be looking to try and get onto the podium. Richie's pretty much got to still watch everybody. So he's got to ride aggressively, but he's got that advantage. He knows he's got 20 seconds up his sleeve, but he wants to finish this race with a great big exclamation mark behind this week's performance. Take Oka. I'm sure he'd love to have a winning stage photo to go along with it.
Yeah, I'm sure he would, and of course his team's got a big job today. Over 151.5 k's in some of the most beautiful terrain that we have in Australia. Rob, we'll look forward to you in commentary, and of course you can get to Twitter and ask Robbie your questions as simple as going #AskRobbieTDU. Have you been enjoying answering some of those?
Been enjoying those. Can't wait to get a few more. They've been great questions this year. A couple of challenging ones.
Yeah, so make them nice and thoughtful. Give Robbie a little bit of a test and see what he can answer for you on our coverage today. Santos Tour Down Under. We are moving towards Wollonga Hill. Let's get back to commentary with Phil and Paul.
Looking down at 23 here, Richie Porte. He's just gone past and acknowledged the presence of the man who's closest to him in the overall, Gorka Izagira, who replied with a nod of the head. And Richie Porte's gone back up with his team, setting the pace, controlling the race, giving everybody the feeling that this team really knows what it is doing and what it has to do today. Those 3 or 4 riders out in front, when the race gets to the old Wollonga Hill, will be in desperate trouble. The gap isn't running away, it's nudging away. 2 minutes and 30 seconds now.
So look at the riders in the blue jersey with the M on it. That's Movistar. They've also got another rider we need to think about, and that's Jesus Herrada. That's the hills that they're heading to in the distance, and these riders all know from experience, either having been over it or having seen this event on TV, the crowd that is going to be waiting for them. It's amazing the number of people who are actually riding up the hill this morning very early on.
Yes, you mentioned Herrada there. He was just taken up to the front by one of his teammates, Suterlin. So they obviously respect him too. They put him right up just behind the BMC boys at the moment. New professional at the back here, Jeremy Maison, getting the feel of life as a pro in a World Tour event. It's his first ever World Tour race. It's his first ever professional race, signing for the team at the start of this season. That's his Lotto Soudal team there. He's getting more bottles on board, quite clearly intending to go the distance today. Well, there's plenty of distance left at the moment as the peloton linger off the back. Of ocean experiences to be had. The more adventurous can take a day trip to see the endangered and protected great white shark in the flesh. Port Lincoln is globally recognised for its bluefin tuna. Here you can feed them by hand or jump in the water with them and watch a feeding frenzy. Another special experience is swimming with sea lions in their natural environment at Seal Cove. These gentle, inquisitive sea creatures are unparalleled in the underwater world. But if you want to keep your feet firmly on dry land, then from May to October, just 100 metres offshore, you can see southern right whales mating, calving and nursing from cliff tops at the head of the Great Australian Bight. How about a round of applause? Here it comes. There's magnificent creatures, the whales, as they sit offshore here in the great ocean. As we're looking at the riders now, still happily sitting off 2¼ minutes. It's just going nowhere, this break. It's shortening, it's lengthening, but we're talking seconds either way. They're making the turn off the same road now. The leader's heading down into McLaren Vale shortly.
Psychologically, it's a pretty tough position for Team BMC to be in. They'd love this race to be over, but they know that the critical part of the race is the last 20 kilometres once they go up Old Wollonga Hill for the penultimate time. But they've just got to keep it in their minds and keep themselves concentrated on the job in hand and know that once they've got through this stage, if Richie Porte walks away in the Oka jersey tonight, he's taken a serious option on getting himself the victory. But they've got their challengers, Phil, right behind them. Team Movistar, they've got a two-pronged attack, and that's going to be Herrada and Gorka Izagira. They're behind them. I think really, in all honesty, Orica Scott can only count on Esteban Chavez. But in BMC, they've got a spare man, if you like, because Rowan Dennis is still sitting in 6th place overall.
Just look at the crowd in McLaren Vale here. There's very few races in the world that attract public like this race does. Obviously the Tour de France is the most watched sporting event in the world, but here, this is in McLaren Vale, this is a fabulous crowd. These are the 4 riders receiving the applause, because this is where it all started, just on an hour ago, so they're not hanging around today. We've done nearly 40 kilometres now in the opening hour of racing.
Well, I have to say, Phil, whenever we come down to Australia, one of my favourite things about down here in South Australia is the pies. And I've got to say, the best pie that I've had all week was when we came to the McLaren Vale County Fair.
There's the Yummy Nuts Market. How's the nuts feature? The famous Australian meat pies. They are world famous. Everybody talks about them when they come to Australia. Paul Sherry makes it a big effort to find the best shops. Yeah, it's a very, very good time for 39.6 kilometres, just under the hour of racing since the flag went in, and it went in just ahead of the riders.
Look at Pentoso here. He's pounding a huge gear on the front, putting young Miles Scotson into a little spot of bother there. But you see, Phil, they're keeping it pegged at 2 minutes 15 seconds. And I have to say, I think this probably is the biggest crowd that I've seen on this circuit around here. But just wait until we get to the final part of this race, when we get to Wollonga Hill. The first time I ever came here, when we turned up to the finish at Wollonga Hill the first time, I honestly thought I was at the Tour de France.
Well, you talk to the foreign riders, why do you come 20,000 kilometres to ride a bike race? And they always give you the same answer. They come for the beautiful weather, or more or less guaranteed, and of course because they said the people are so enthusiastic and really cheer us on. And that's what happens. This is a lovely area to base as well. They've got lots of bicycle trails here. Disused railway tracks now rebuilt as rail trails.
113 kilometres, that's about 70 miles of racing. Important to keep feeding, and people always ask me, well, why do riders keep feeding all the time like this, every 15 to 20 minutes? Well, very often it's not a question of feeding for today, you're feeding for tomorrow as well, because it's almost impossible when you sit down to have an evening meal to take on board the amount of calories that you burn during the event. In one sitting, anyway.
Scotson there, the champion of Australia, also on Team BMC. He was a surprise winning his first shot at the Senior Australian Championships, but really deserved it. He was in the decisive break and he thought, well, I can't beat any of these guys in a sprint finish, so I'll have a go. Worst, I'll get his last. And they didn't catch him. He went 1.2 kilometres from the flag and he beat them to the line. He didn't put his hands up in victory salute. He put his hands up sideways and shrugged his shoulders. He could not believe he'd just picked up the Australian Championship at the first attempt. And now he proudly wears that jersey and will do all year around the world.
I'm surprised you didn't pick that up, Phil. The other sport going off just off to the side of the race here, in fact, was bowling, which
I can't do that. I've commentated on that.
Really now?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
A very slow motion game.
Very difficult when you think about crown green bowling. You've got to make sure you get the right angles.
Indeed you have. You know, the balls aren't round as well.
And they're weighted.
And they roll the wrong way. It's not easy. But still Ventosa on the front. He won his championship of Spain in 2012, the same year he won a stage of the Giro, so he had a great year in 2012, Ventosa. These are the leaders, and the crowd were dragging him out of town now. They're all the way down the streets here as we leave town. All the campers are out. Stunningly lovely day for a Saturday morning, moving into the early afternoon here in the McLaren Vale. So as the four riders are going towards the second circuit and Snapper Point, the gap is holding up at about 2¼ minutes.
For every mum and dad. From Subaru.
Great to have your company. This is Channel 9's Wide World of Sports, and what a beautiful part of the world we're in. This is the Bike Exchange, Stage 5 of the Santos Tour Down Under, from McLaren Vale to Wollonga Hill, and a very happy man right at the moment. This is his backyard. He's the tourism minister for South Australia, Leon Bignell. Leon, look, not a hard place to sell this.
it's a fantastic place to live and a great place to visit as well. And we've got 50,000 people in here from interstate and overseas looking at the great things that we have here in South Australia. But McLaren Vale, one of the great wine regions in the world, and of course you will see it on the Nine Network's brilliant coverage today. The beautiful coastline around this area as well, beautiful golden beaches, the blue seas, and of course all these wonderful vineyards. It looks great any time of year. This time you have the green of the vineyards and the brown straw-coloured hills. And if you come here in winter, of course all the hills are beautiful green as well. So it's a great time. There's the Star of Greece restaurant. Tim, I know you were
one
there.
One of my personal favourites. Not that I'm big on food, Leon.
I was there last night. I took Christian Prudhomme, the head of the Tour de France there. He was very impressed. And you know, Adelaide's small bar scene is just really going off. And from the centre of the city, there are 200 cellar doors within an hour's drive. Now, this is the Flinders Ranges, 560 million-year-old fossils. The only place in the world you can see those. It's a 5-hour drive from Adelaide. It's on the way to the Northern Territory, and of course people can get up there and see the Australian outback. And Kangaroo Island is just a stunning place. It's we call it the zoo without fences. Great wildlife, amazing seafood that comes out of there, sea lions and seals as well. That looks like you and me coming up Wollonga Hill there. That one, I think.
100% if we ever got up there. Look, the scenery is beautiful, and as you mentioned, the wineries and the restaurants. But one of the other great things is the friendly nature of the South Australians and the customer service. Like the other night when we were at that Star of Greece restaurant, Nikki and Doug, the lights went out because of the storm. They just could not have done enough for us, and that tends to be the attitude of South Australians in customer service.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and we really want to have the best service of any state and territory in Australia. It's we've won the major events capital 2 years in a row. The Tour Down Under was named the best sport event in Australia last year, so it's picked that title up again. But people are very proud of this race. We've been holding it since 1999, so it'll be coming up to the 20th edition next year. And you know, we are proud of the race, and we are really proud that so many people from interstate and overseas get over here and watch the race.
Yeah, we're looking at live pictures now. It's an intriguing stage. We've got a big stage ahead. And just finally, thanks so much, Leon, but you guys have invested. You've put the money where the mouth is on this event.
Yeah, look, we've put an extra $6 million in. One part of that is to increase the women's race, because we see women's sport as really important. But the other part that was really important for us was to help out Channel 9's coverage as well. So we're delighted that with the great work that the Nine Network does here with the Santos Tour Down Under, and we put some more money in there so that there can be a split feed that is for the national audience here in Australia, but a different feed for across the world as well. So that's an important addition to this great race.
Always great to see you, Leon. Thanks for coming in for a chat, and it has really helped, that extra money, because you get the opportunity to ask Robbie questions. We get fan cam. We get a whole stack of personalised stuff here at the Santos Tour Down Under. Back to commentary.
We're just entering here the Powerade hydration station with the 4 leaders. The gap is locked in at 2 minutes and 15 seconds. They are back in Wollonga now. They get a little hors d'oeuvre to look up the road at the hill, but they turn short, of course. This is on lap number 2 of 3. There's the peloton a lot further down the dead straight road. This is a cavalry charge down this road when they head towards the hill for the first time. Everybody wants to get a good crack at it. These 4, it starts literally where the barriers are, the climb of the Wollonga Hill.
Well, for the supremacy of the overall standings in this race, I think we'll start to see the teams, the serious teams, come up alongside the front runners, BMC, as they want to try and really wipe up the breakaway before we start to attempt to come up here. 45 kilometres covered, 106 kilometres to go. That's about 64 miles of racing before we get to the end. I have to say, Phil, Ventoso is doing a sterling job here, keeping this breakaway tight. Yeah, 1 man against 4.
All by himself. Here's De Gent. They don't have many sharp turns on good roads like this in Belgium, but he should be okay. Jack Bauer right behind him, our hero of yesterday. I personally think the judges made the most competitive rider too early yesterday. They gave it jointly to Cam Meyer, who was with him, and Jack Bauer, but then Jack Bauer went alone, and he was outstanding and caught only 3 kilometres from the end. Little bit of a round of golf. You probably get an early start because everybody's off the course watching the race go by at the moment.
as they head down to the same turn now with the peloton. Here comes De Gent. They've removed the traffic furnace from the centre of that road, so another example of the great organisation and the great links and friendship between the towns, the government, the police and the organisation. And that's why this race has succeeded ever since it started back in 1999. Ooh, Scottson took a grab. You're supposed to let go though when you pass a bottle up on it.
Well, it's actually a pretty difficult thing to do when you're going slightly uphill through the hydration station to take on board a bottle. And I've seen many riders come unstuck. In fact, one of the funniest things I ever saw in a feeding station was the person handing up the bag forgot to let go of the bag and he pulled the rider off the bike backwards. You certainly don't want that to happen.
No, but it's quite funny though.
Yeah. And as I say very often in commentary, it is often one of the most dangerous points on the race, because riders sometimes panic. They see their helper at the last minute and they try and cut their way through the main field, not paying attention to who's riding behind them. Then a bottle gets dropped, it goes under a wheel, and accidents very often happen. And it is also on most of the races around the world, Phil, where you get some of the biggest crowds are hoping that the riders will throw off their used bottles.
Used bottles, feeding bags, maybe even food, because they don't like everything they find in those little musettes, so they leave it there when they throw the bag off. Well, I take my hat off to Ventoso. His team has said to you, you do all the first hour and a half of racing, Francisco, and we'll just follow you. And that's exactly what's happening. As we get round the old Bush Inn corner again. 2:15. And it is actually locked in at the moment at 2:15, but consistently getting the check from the race. It's not going anywhere, that breakaway just now. We're on lap number 2 of 3. There'll be a sprint, and I put that in hypotheses because I'm not sure there will be a sprint at Snapper Point. So the peloton in Willunga town itself now. Ventosa, as ever, is on the front, followed by Miles Scottson, the young champion of Australia.
Another life saved with the Chemist Warehouse app. Take control of your health and wellness. Download now.
Sit by the turquoise ocean waters and experience Mediterranean cuisine like never before at the Star of Greece. It was named after a ship wrecked in a fierce storm in 1883 just offshore. This idyllic location is the perfect place to experience seafood plucked from the local seas and then presented to you with flair and a splash, of course, of the region's award-winning wine. It's a great place to go, believe me. Beautiful coral sand there. Now we're looking at the long straight road. If you turn right at the top end, you'll come to the Star of Greece on the left-hand side, about another 2 kilometres, as the race heads down, of course, now to Aldinga Beach.
But unfortunately, because of the fact that the race is going by there 3 times a day, you would have had to get a reservation in about 3 months ago.
Absolutely right. It's a great place to base yourself today. Sign that man up. He could do a triathlon.
Well, just continuing I was just going to say, for continuing the great Australian debate, whether you go for speedos or for boardies. Of course,
yeah.
Surfboard shorts.
Still Ventoso on the front, tipping out the rhythm. He's going to someday have to go to the back of the race and hang on. He knows that, but that's not his job. It'll be equal shares of the prize money, providing that his man wins the day in the ochre jersey, Richie Port. That's his job. He's a pro. He's only actually won 31 races in a career which started back in 2004. And he hasn't won a race, Ventoso. I'm just going to check this now. Since he won a stage of a race in France back in August 2012. That was his best year because he won a Giro and he won his national championship.
But it's also horses for courses. A rider gets to a certain point in his career when he starts to get just a little bit older, because Ventosa is going to be 35 years of age this year, when he realises he's got a better chance of keeping his professional contract if he works for the team. Now there we're looking at a man who hails from just down the road from here. That is Rowan Dennis.
Yeah, Rowan Dennis.
And he's a
Past
guy
winner,
who in fact has worn the yellow jersey in the Tour de France with the fastest ever time trial performance.
Yes, he won this event, and guess who he beat? This man here, by 2 seconds. And now it's the tables have reversed. We'll see what works out. The leaderboard, as we started this morning, is Aguirre at 20 seconds. Remember, there's always a 10-second bonus to win the stage as well. Chavez is third. Jay McCarthy finished fourth in this race last year. Guess where he is now? And Nathan Haas in fifth place.
Well, he'll have a good man looking after him. Of course, Peter Sagan will be looking after Jay McCarthy. And I just see the sign there for Willunga, Phil. And by the way, as we've been looking back through some of the Aboriginal words, in fact, the Aboriginal word Willunga means locality of green trees. And I don't think I've ever quite seen South Australia quite as green as it has been this year.
No, they've had great rains. The reservoirs are full. Let's have a little look who's the long thin line at the front. Everybody else just having a chat in the middle. Of course they're not. Might be hanging on. Still locked in at 2:15. Our good friends on radio, on the Tour radio in the race, have stopped talking to me now, so we'll have to just go with what we see on screen. 99 kilometers to go.
Quite strange a stage like today as well, because although it's almost 100 miles in length, 151.5 kilometers, the decision of today's stage is probably going to be made in 2 sections of 3 kilometers, and those are the 2 sections of Willunga Hill. So the guys who want to win the race overall, who want to win the stage and have to stay high in the overall standings, have got to be extremely patient on a day like this. It's almost as if they've got to count the energy that they dispense throughout the 3.5-hour race.
I don't know if you saw that lovely signboard with the Aboriginal names, Mai Ponga, Yankalila. We've been to all those places this week as well. Will Clark, Victorian rider, very strong bike rider indeed. Good time trialist over short distances as well. On the opening stage of the Jaco Herald Sun Tour, which is on the promenade along the Yarra River in Melbourne. Here they come up to the junction, a little bit of a left flick and carry on the chase. The gap has gone off the screen now, so we really are in trouble, but believe me, it is still 2 minutes and 15 seconds to the leaders.
The biggest superstars on the planet.
George Clooney.
Beyonce.
You can be sure that you find your ideal hotel for the best price. Hotel Trivago.
So the field speeding through the vineyards of McLaren Vale region here, in the backdrop the beautiful Southern Ocean, and we'll be down there again shortly. We're heading on our second lap of 3 laps before we go on to the circuit of the Willunga Hill. This is the penultimate day of the Santos Tour Down Under. 151 kilometers in all, 95 kilometers left to ride, and one man at the head of the peloton, the former Spanish champion Francisco Fendozo, is doing all of the chasing by himself, and it's having an effect. The gap is now 1 minute and 50.
I think before we get to the approach to the climb, once we've done these 3 circuits on the flat, we'll start to see a real big acceleration in the main field, because to try and create distance between yourself and your rivals on the slopes of just a 3-kilometer climb, you need to have a hard race. And the first time up the climb in the past, sometimes there's been no major real decision making. So you can see on the right hand side, Thomas de Gent is wearing the polka dot jersey as the Subaru joint leader in the King of the Mountains competition. It actually belongs to Richie Porte, because although they've got the same number of points, Richie Porte actually won the deepest classification, the first category. But yesterday, in 3rd place, Esteban Chavez went out and he got 4th place over one of the climbs. So he's always also thinking that he picked up 2 points, and he will try, I think, and see if he can win the King of the Mountains competition at this race.
I think he's the man who could destroy all our commentary all day, because he could win this race on this last climb, Chavez, and he could win the King of the Mountains as well.
Well, if you start to look at the maths, if Chavez could get himself a victory of the stage with a 12-second advantage over Richie Porte, he could move himself into the overall lead. and you can see him sitting there wearing number 2. He's got his teammates all the way around him, and they've got great confidence in this guy. And it's amazing when we talked to him the other night, Phil. He just said he was so happy to be riding on an Australian team, and that's very difficult very often for Colombian riders. In the past, we've seen they've had a hard time staying away from Colombia because they like to go home. They like to be in their own environment. But he just has adopted the Aussie way of life and the Aussie team.
Absolutely right. Lime green colours of Cannondale Drapac there. There, of course, we've got Will Clark in the breakaway. There's the white jerseys of Uni SA, a team which always does well in this race. They've had the winner in years gone by with Patrick Jonker. They're leading in the team race today. This is, in effect, the national Australian team. And they forced the rule change in the World Tour because it was open only to World Tour teams, but the Tour Down Under said, hey, the Australians like Australians in the race as well, you know. There they all are down there. They fight for selection for that team, and they've never, ever let the side down.
And the man with the red number on his back, 181, that was the man who was in the breakaway yesterday. That was Cam Meyer. And I just wonder on that decision when he sat up on the running towards the finish, if that was, I mean, I wonder if it was a good idea.
Well, we may find out. Of course, he may be wanting to unleash himself on the climb here. He's moving up towards the front here. A former winner of this race, and he's very strong on the climbs. He might be another man who could spoil the party.
In fact, I tasked Robbie McEwen, Phil, with getting out to the start this morning to have a chat with Cam Meyer. So when he joins us a little bit later on, we'll get the insight into that.
Okay. Here we go, onto the beach again. Aldinga Bay, straight ahead. We turn right. We're going past all the beautiful homes here. And I think if they don't own them, they've sold them today, because there's crowds in every veranda. It's become an annual holiday to watch the race across the beach. This is the one stage that survives every year in its entirety. It is a traditional stage of the Santos Tour Down Under, the day before we end in Adelaide. We're in the long straight road approaching the same beach now with Ventoso, this robot of a man, sitting on the front, pumping out the pedals, expecting no help from anyone. Richie Port always sitting in fifth wheel there. There's a souvenir. Thank you very much.
And you know, just the riders nearly always throw their bottles away once they see a crowd of spectators, because they know that somebody's going to pick them up as a souvenir. But in this race, there is also a section of the race, usually after the feeding point, where the riders have to throw away anything that they don't need before a certain point. And then afterwards, the race organisation goes down there and makes sure that everything is picked up and cleaned away.
Now, last time we came down here, our helicopters picked up a lovely pod of dolphins. I think it's a pod, it might be a school, not sure. And they're out there in those beautiful blue waters. I don't go and swim out and have a look, though, because there's plenty of great white sharks out there as well.
I must admit, though, Ventoso has done a phenomenal job, and the big advantage that is it gives the other riders from Team BMC the chance to get a slightly easier ride, sitting in second, third, fourth and fifth position, because they will just sit in his slipstream for as long as possible. I do think we'll start to see a little acceleration come later on, because Jack Bauer and Thomas Gent in that breakaway group, they're very astute professional bike riders. They know just almost exactly where the main field is going to accelerate, and I think once they see the acceleration in the peloton, we'll see an acceleration in that breakaway group too, because Thomas Gent, if he can, he wants to try and get himself points first time up Old Wollonga Hill.
On your bike with somebody, I couldn't read it on the house down there, but the wind you see indicating it's coming off the ocean just now, quite strongly as well. On your bike with Santos, who else would they dare say, the great sponsor of this event, and they're really enjoying themselves. Let's hope to remember the third passage. It's about a kilometre now, they're saying, the gap between the two groups. That's 2 minutes, and Ventoso is the only man doing the chasing. It's his job. He's the super domestique of the BMC team. When we get to Wollonga Hill, he'll be needing a bit of a car lift up there. I think he'd be too tired, but that's his job, will be done. That's all that matters. Take your car on the beach here, you see.
You have to remove them, though, before the tide comes in.
Yes, I think they're just above the tide run, actually. But I do think you have to pay, but don't quote me, I'm not sure. I don't know why they allow cars on the beach. It's probably because nobody parked them on the road, really. Isn't that beautiful? Stunning area. The blue waters, just looking down, don't see anything at all in the way of dolphins or sharks. We've completely lost the peloton. We'll try and find that for you as well. Here they come. And these are the 4 boys. There is a sprint just around the corner here at Snapper Point. Just around that top bend, but I'm not so sure they'll race it. I mean, we've had 3 days of non-events at the sprint points because the small bonuses and points have not really helped the riders in the breakaway. It's all very, very technical. 2 minutes the gap, 90 kilometers to go.
Well, just looking at the physiology of that peloton, it really is strung out into a long line, and it has been since that breakaway group we've got clear. We're looking now at 90 kilometers to go to the finish, and the advantage still locked in at the 2-minute margin. Everyone waiting for that first ascent of Wollonga Hill, and then the charge down the other side to do it once more.
Even in a peloton which is 129 strong, all the teams find each other, which I always marvel at. But if you look down the peloton here, you've got BMC, you've got Movistar, you've got Astana, you've got, I think it's Trek there, I can't even get these teams right yet. But they're all in their team formations. 1 kilometre to the sprint at Snapper Point. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, but these boys have lost too much time to worry about seconds. They're thinking of staying away to the end. And as far as de Gent is concerned, just the King of the Mountains points he wants, and hopes that the order's good on the last lap when he probably won't be contesting the final climb. There's the 1 kilometre gap now between the bunch and break. There's the nice little walkway down to the beach.
Well, Jeff Bowers had a fair bit of success at the Santos Tour Down Under. He's ridden it 5 times, if my notes are correct, and his best performance was 5th place in the overall standings. He's quite a way down currently, but at 1.5 minutes, if he was to get over the top of this climb in a breakaway group, he would move up quite astutely in the overall classification. And I think it's quite interesting to note that he was picked up by Quick Step Flooring, and Patrick Lefevre, as I mentioned the other day, a team manager who is always very clever at picking up bike riders with big power.
Gap has just dropped down there to 1 minute 50 seconds as they approach the banner round the corner. I don't think they're going to bother to race it though. Bowers even moved off the front there to let the youngster, the first-year pro, come through here. Jeremy Maison gets a small cash prize, of course, as well as points, and a small time bonus of 3 seconds. So it's Maison from Clark.
Once they turn off the coast here, there you get confirmation of Maison getting himself the IA next sprint as he went through there. They'll turn to the right, and then they'll finally get a little bit of respite, and they'll pick up a slight tailwind. But the wind's not as savage today as it has been sometimes in the past when the riders have been really concerned on the approach to the mountain that, in fact, the race could split up in the crosswinds. You were talking about all of the teams riding together. I think today even more than normal because of the fact that everybody knows they've got to look after their contenders in this flat part of the race and set them up for the attempt and for the approach to Wollonga Hill, because it's so critical to be in a good position on that short steep climb. 3 kilometers or about 2 miles in length with a gradient of 7.5%.
Wending our way away now from the ocean as we go back inland, heading towards McLaren Vale.
That is an amazing sight, a beautiful picture. I'm not sure that Ventoso thinks that, though, because he's riding an individual time trial today. He hasn't had any help from anyone. They're keeping Miles Scotson in second place. So once Ventoso starts to falter a little bit, it'll be the turn of the Australian national champion to come up and take over the pacemaking. But what an experience for him as well, Phil. First year on the big international circuit, Australian national champion, and riding to protect an overall leader like Richie Porte. It's a fast learning curve.
Well, Ventoso, he can't be far off the oldest man in the race at 35 years age. He might actually be the oldest man in the race.
And you can just see over to the right-hand side there at the Colombian flag now. I wonder if that's going to be for Sergio Henao today, or whether it's going to be for Esteban Chavez. I've just got a feeling that Chavez, getting a couple of days of racing under his belt, he might be more aggressive on the final climb.
It's goodbye to Aldinga Beach for a second time now on the Santos Tour Down Under. We're looking for one more lap before we head up towards the Wollonga Hill and the big showdown amongst the men who want to win this race when it ends tomorrow in Adelaide itself, outside the famous Oval Cricket Ground. There's the long thin line there. Ventoso still the only pacemaker. It's been this way for way over an hour of cycling now, and in so doing it, he's been so effective. He's now got this locked in at just 2 minutes to the leaders. They've never had a chance. Well, hot footing in out of the bush, I think that's what they call it in Australia, from the start to the finish, our Robbie McEwen. Robbie, you've ridden this course virtually because of your great profiles over the last few days, but what news from the start for us?
Well, as I said in the preview there, Phil, tension all round, all the GC contenders, the looks on the faces just said it all. But one man I had a bit of a longer look at was Izagirre, and he looks like he's in a lot of pain, but a really defiant look. He really wants these World Tour points and defend his position, because he's been suffering so much from that crash, particularly yesterday, but he hung in, hung tough. Be a massive test for him. And a look of confidence on Richie Porte. That was one of the things that really stood out for me, looking really relaxed.
Yeah, I have to say, Richie Porte, I don't think I've ever seen him exude quite so much confidence. And going into a season with a victory, if he can get the victory here at the Santos Tour Down Under, that will really set him up for the races to come. And I mean, we're talking about a guy who's won Paris-Nice, and a guy that I've always thought could be the next Australian winner of the Tour de France. And I think the victory here, knowing that his mate Chris Froome is watching on television a little bit further up in the continent, it'll be the first advantage in the psychological battle.
I interviewed Richie at the start line today, and he said he's quietly confident, he feels good. But I spoke to him this morning in the village when we're in the compound about to leave in the vehicles to drive down here. He used fewer words. He said, "I want to win this."
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yes.
Richie, I've just given it away, but
Nobody's
it's really not
listening,
giving
Richie,
away.
you're fine.
It's not giving much of a secret away, really, because once he goes, there's not much anyone can do about it.
And he's not going to say he wants to lose, is he?
No, precisely. And he said, I'm pretty sure I can ride him out the wheel when I want to. So it's big words.
Well, that's Richie Porte. That's the man we were talking about, number 23.
Yes, all the pressure will come on him, about another hour or so, a little bit more, hour and a half. Then we'll see.
Yes, and he is extremely confident, Richie Porte. And I think the fact that he just jumped away from everybody on that climb up to Parakan has given him even more confidence. Well, don't forget, throughout the whole of this week, you've been able to follow us at Tour Down Under by getting involved with the hashtag AskRobbieTDU. And there's been some great questions, and I think Robbie's really enjoyed answering them. So this one from Sarah C. Who would you regard as the most talented descender in the peloton? And I think that's the current peloton.
I'll give you a hint. His initials are PS.
Well, it's not me, is it? Obviously,
and that's
no.
why I gave it.
Peter,
I just wanted to give you a bit of a boost until you realise I'm talking about Peter Sagan.
Peter Sagan, no, he's an amazing bike rider, bike handler as well, and
yeah, and
former mountain biker.
We saw some of those skills on display when Izagirre crashed on the way to Victor Harbour the other day. He basically fell on Peter Sagan's wheels, but he just threw a left switch with his hips, got around it, stayed up, and just so sure and secure and balanced on the bike. He's got fantastic skills, and we just love watching everything he does.
That's him there, number 11. In fact, just giving a little tap on the back to his teammates, who's in 4th place overall, Jay McCarthy. Peter Sagan is one of the stars, really, of the sport, and a great man. Let's have another quick question coming in. This is from Nick Lohman. Is it likely that anyone will launch a serious attack the first time that we climb Wollonga? Good question.
I don't think any of the guys in the top 10, 15 on GC will have a go at attacking the first time over Wollonga, because they know it's quite a long way around that lap, and they'll get the breeze into their face when they come back around through the town of Wollonga itself. I don't think they'll take the risk, because first time over there'll still be a lot of teammates waiting to set up their GC contender or their best climber for the final time up Wollonga. So I think if they did try to attack up there, I think they'll come off, well, maybe not second best, maybe 22nd best.
But isn't there advantage to make it just that little bit tougher on the climb for the final climb?
We may see, rather than an attack by a GC contender, possibly a team that try and make it hard in service of their GC contender without him having to do it himself. So wind the pace up, make it tough.
What about Esteban Chavez? Because he's moved up in the King of the Mountains competition. The man who's leading, wearing the leader's jersey at the moment, of course, is that man, number 61, and that is Thomas de Gendt. Well, let's get another question, and this is from Jonathan Gelsthorpe. With Port being much stronger than others at the moment, could he peak too early for the Tour de France? Good question.
It is a good question, but what guys like Richie Port, even Chris Froome do. Chris Froome came to Australia last summer. He won in the Herald Sun Tour. Richie Port looks like he's on his way to a win here in very good form. But the good guys, they'll then take a break. They divide their season into segments. So Richie Port will have a bit of a rest period, even put on 2 or 3 kilos. Going into the next part of the season, you've got to keep those reserves. So they're very aware of being too good too soon, or trying to hold good form for too long, which would leave them depleted for the start of the Tour. So their trainers are very aware of that being a possibility, so they wind things back, recover a bit, and then start the real build up to the Tour.
Well, that was always a concern, wasn't it, for Cadel Evans, who had to decide whether or not he could participate in this race or take the risk of not riding and being ready for the month of July.
Well, July is still a long way away as we watch here. 2 minutes the gap for the riders at the Tour de France, of course, is what many of these riders will be aiming for in July. These are the riders, 4 of them. 2 minutes, 80 kilometres, everything to go for. We're heading back to McLaren Vale.
Week on 9.
We're heading back to McLaren Vale. It's 151 kilometres this penultimate day. It's the big test day, though, on the Santos Tour Down Under. And the breakaway of 4 locked in at 2 minutes. As once we get through McLaren Vale, we will have completed 2 laps, about 80 kilometres of the race, leaving 77 at the moment, still to race to the finish. Robin McEwen sat alongside us here. Robbie, turning every pedal with the boys. This wouldn't have been your favourite stage, would it?
No, it wasn't. One was I was always, well, either worried about trying to defend a GC, or completely not worried about, because I knew I was going to be dropped and all I had to do was get to the finish and think about Sunday in Adelaide. That was a favourite.
But that's not quite true, because one day you actually went on the attack on this stage.
When I was once younger, a bit stronger, bit dumber, if
anyway,
it's possible.
Talking about strong, 144, the most competitive rider of yesterday, Jack Bauer. Now, I gave you one thing to do this morning, and that was to get out to have a quick word with Cam Meyer. The 2 of them were together. Jack Bauer ended up getting caught 3 kilometres to go. What's the story?
Yeah, that thing. I had one job.
And you did it. Well done.
Yeah, no, I did go and find Cam, and I had a word to him. And I said, mate, what did go down there through Lobethal. One moment you were there, next minute there was a huge gap. Did you have a mechanical, something wrong with the bike? He said, no, Jack was just punishing me. I was in a world of hurt. He said he was going so strong. He said, and what made it worse was I knew we were going to get caught. At that point, we had about 40 seconds. And I knew we were getting caught. I was suffering, so I thought, I'm just going to stop it now because I don't think we're going to make it. I said, but he got pretty close to the finish. He said, yeah, but still wasn't going to make it. Cam's very calculating. He's very clever. And he said, if we'd had a minute, if we could have got to the gorge with a minute, he said, I was there all the way. I would have turned myself inside out. He said, I just didn't see the point to get to 2 or 3K to go and get caught then.
I think I agree with you, and I agree with Cam Meyer that they probably still would have been caught, but maybe just 500 or a kilometre later. That's Jack Bauer on the right-hand side, and a little bit earlier on we were earwigging when he was chatting to his team manager, and I don't think his team manager was too happy to have him in the breakaway, and he said, look, I might as well come here because at least I'll get an easy ride when we come to Wollonga Hill, because if I stay in the main field, he says, I'm going to get dropped first time up. And again, very astute thinking.
And a guy like Jack Barrett's last roll of the dice, really, because tomorrow, downtown Adelaide, on that city circuit, it's 99 times out of 100, it's going to be a bunch sprint, and that's not for Jack Bauer. So get out there, have a crack today. Never know, you might end up with a red number again tomorrow for doubling up.
Well, very lucky to grab a couple of words with Jack Bauer, because he's a man who really is quite clever when it comes to riding on a bike and looking for the breakaways.
Once the break is gone, the race shuts down from behind. Everybody can relax. They can take it easier for the day. It's a lot more relaxing, a lot more enjoyable, rather than attacks going all day like you might see in a club race or an amateur race. But once the break is gone, you need to give them a certain amount of rope, but not too much that you can't, reel them in when it comes to the finale. And yeah, it really just depends who is in the break, how strong they are, how well they work together.
Well, I have to say, he knows exactly what's going on, so why on earth is he in the break, Rob?
Well, sometimes, like I said about Thomas de Hent the other day, sometimes it's just stronger than yourself. There's guys that just love to go as hard as they can all day long. And it's maybe no big surprise to see guys that we've already seen a few of these guys earlier in the week. Thomas de Hent on the stage to Victor Harbour, Jack Bauer yesterday, Maison a couple of days ago. Will Clark was in that counter-attack yesterday with Vulgren and back before he punctured and went out of the break. So he's got some unfinished business. So anyone who's not a sprinter knows that this is the day they might as well empty the tank. This is their last full road stage, so they're going to have a go at it. But I'm expecting the scenario of the big guns fighting it out on Wollonga. There's a lot of business to be done up there, because the top of the classification, apart from Richie Point, they're all stacked up just a few seconds apart.
Well, we're just about halfway through the stage right now, and the gap is holding at exactly 2 minutes. It has to be one of the nicest of the days. Over the 19 years this race has come down this way. It's there is wind blowing, but only on the shoreline. It's very, very pleasant when we get to the interior, and it's really warm, but it's not hot.
And I think that's an important factor. The wind is not as strong as it can be down here, so the overall contenders, they'll be a little bit more relaxed in the main field, but they've got to be patient, haven't they? Because those guys who are trying to finish in the top 10 in the overall stand, they want to shuffle their positions today, but they've got to wait for that 3-kilometre section of today's stage to make their effort.
They've got to save every ounce of energy. I was talking to Simon Gerrans at the start. He said this is quite strange that there's just no wind. There's a very light breeze, and it seems to be even shifting directions depending on what part of the course they're on because of the hills around this region. As they come down through McLaren Flat, it's blowing from their left, pushing them slightly across to the right-hand gutter. The flags are flying a bit. The wind starts to pick up as the temperature is rising. I've been out there for a bit longer than you guys today. It was really starting to warm up in the sun. I think it's going to get over 30 degrees in the end. So by the time they do these couple of laps, that's going to add another element to the race for these guys.
Although the nice warm welcome as we come into the streets here in the centre of McLaren Vale. Paul Sherwin and I, almost, well, a week ago today, in fact, we had the pleasure of taking part in the McLaren Vale
festival, which is a very famous festival in this part of the world. I have to tell you, everybody, that Paul Sherwin is not very good at wine spitting, but we are extremely good at bottling wine, and we finished third.
Third in the wine bottling competition, having to cork 2 cases of red wine. I did the corking, Phil did the pouring.
And then we sold it all off to the charity, which was the local hospital, and I hope they did very well.
Coming back to the race, though, you can see that they, I think, are starting to pick up the tempo a little bit. They are getting to the point now as they complete 2 laps here. They're going to go onto the final lap around when they realise the peloton's going to accelerate too.
Well, little tight, sensible bend. There's no big hurry here to get around that corner. This is now the official start of lap number 3 of 3 before we then go out onto the Wollonga Hill, where we have 2 circuits and we finish right on the top of them there hills.
Binge for free on every episode ever of all your favourite shows with 9 Now.
Being chased by the rest of the field here, and Ventoso has still headed up the field. He's done this now for 2 laps, and that's the best part of 80 kilometres on the front here. And his teammate there, Scottson, just sat behind in 2nd place. Then we've got Rowan Dennis, man in the ochre jersey, of course. Right behind him, his main rivals on the Spanish Movistar team. Everybody waiting just for the roads to tilt upwards in Wollonga, and then they will hit each other with everything they've got.
Maison on the far side, FDJ, Jack Bauer eating lunch for today and tomorrow, keeping his energy levels topped up. On a stage like today, Robbie, 150 kilometres or so, it's not the big calorific burn that you get of the big mountain stages of the Tour de France, but they're still probably going to burn 3,000 to 4,000 calories on a day like today.
Yeah, something like that. So you just got to keep just nibbling away all stage, just small amounts, keep sipping on the water as it heats up, keep hydrated. So they're all things that just become automated with the riders. Something I was seeing with this group, it reminds me of yesterday. We saw the group of Bauer and Meyer happy to stay at 1.5 minutes, not try and extend the gap to bring a reaction from the peloton. Today's a bit the same, hanging at 2 minutes the whole time. They realise that's the gap we're going to get given. Don't push your luck and bring a reaction, and De Hent is happy if it stays at that and you can take those KOM points. At some point they will need to start riding harder together if they've got any dream of getting onto the climb the final time.
Shane or Andrew? Great to have your company. This is the Santos Tour Down Under, and of course we're in the Queen stage, the Bike Exchange Stage 5, McLaren Vale to Wollonga Hill. We're going to see them come over Wollonga Hill twice. That means that they all need a lot of nutrition. Now we have performance nutritionist Ted Munson. You're out here from London, first time here in Australia,
First time,
Ted,
yeah.
so you're seeing these conditions for the first time. But I just wanted to talk to you about the whole idea of energy first off and nutrition. We just saw one of the guys having a bar, like having a protein bar probably.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, first things first is the preparation. These riders like to get out of here 2-3 weeks early, actually prepare the body for it. The energy is completely different in these conditions compared to conditions back home. So they'll aim to take on around 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour, and they'll use a mixture of bars, gels, carbohydrate, electrolyte drinks. With that, they'll try and mix it up all the time.
Yeah, so we see there like 60 to 90 grams of carbs. They start fueling early during the ride, and they fuel every 20 minutes, 20 grams of carbs.
Yeah, I mean, the body always uses more than it can possibly absorb. So that's important to start taking on energy early.
Okay, now let's talk about the whole idea of hydration. We had a day on Tuesday. It must have been over 45 degrees for the riders, so the comfort level not there at all, so that they're continually having to bring fluids into the system.
Of course, and actually speaking to some of the Team Sky riders, actually hit 47 on those roads, something that some of them might not have experienced before. So, you know, they'll try and take on around 500 to 1,000 ml of fluid per hour. On top of that, they'll be drinking to thirst. And they are limited to what they can possibly absorb.
So there we're looking at it there, the sweating rates, and it's quite extraordinary to see how the science works and how much fluid goes out of the system.
Of course, and on top of that, they're actually losing a lot of salts as well. And you've got to make sure, I've spoken to a lot of riders this week that are just taking on water. It's important to include sodium in there, at least 300 to 500 milligrams per hour. Sodium, the salts actually help retain and use fluid in the system.
How much weight could they potentially use, or lose rather, over a stage like this, 151.5? Because it's not that hot, it's probably mid-20s today.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think that if they're losing 2.5 litres of fluid, that's almost 2.5 kilos of body mass. You know, they need that. If they're losing more than 2 to 3% of fluid through the body mass, that can severely impair recovery, impair dehydration as well.
Yeah,
they'll try and offset that as much as possible. We're
watching Caleb Ewan there, and this is the post-exercise regime. So what are they taking within 30 minutes? You tell me what that is.
They'll take a carbohydrate protein shake. This is just, you can do it with food, but it's all about convenience. They want to finish the ride, they want to get something in them as soon as possible. We have what's known as the 30-minute window. This is the ideal window to take on energy. The body wants to suck it up, it wants to use it. Within an hour, they'll try and take on full meal. Usually this is a lot sooner than an hour, but this will be mainly a carbohydrate-based meal. And throughout, they'll try and replace around 150% of their body mass that they've lost with fluid. So taking on 1.5 litres of fluid ideally.
So they're drinking water, and water with sodium and other kinds of things all the time. Look, great to talk to you, Ted. It's a really insight. Your company, SIS, or the company that you work for, supply 10 teams, including Sky, and
yeah, we've got a lot of these riders are using SIS today. We're official nutrition sponsors of Team Sky, and we're very proud to be. We learn a lot about what they do, and it really helps inform us as a company.
Well, welcome to Australia. You have a great time. You're doing a great job. And an insight there into where our athletes are at with their hydration, with their nutrition and with their recovery. It is time to get back to commentary now. Let's get back to the boys.
Streets of Wollonga for the peloton now, still locked in at 2 minutes behind those 4 leaders who have just gone round up towards the Horseshoe Bend at the top of the town for the last time before we go straight through.
Just looking at Team BMC, they've interesting story. They've got a new sponsor on board this year, Tag Heuer, and in fact they've got a specially coloured ochre watch strap for Richie Porte that he's wearing to match his ochre jersey this afternoon. But I was talking to the team manager the other day, and when he went down to talk about the sponsorship, Tag Heuer sponsored lots of different sports, from Formula One to tennis to soccer, and they've actually got a museum. And Jim Okovits went down to the museum, and the lady said, "Oh yes, we used to sponsor a cycling team many years ago." And it was the 7-Eleven cycling team, and she took out a photograph and said, "This is the team," and Jim Okovits pointed at the team manager and said, "Yes, I was the team manager of that team as well." And I think it was job done.
Yeah, indeed. Alex Steed had got the yellow jersey for that team too, and everybody couldn't believe it. This unknown North American team suddenly in the Tour de France and wearing yellow. Didn't last long, but that doesn't matter. Alex wore it. Round the top bend, 2 minutes the gap, 65 kilometres left, just over 40-odd miles to race.
To finish that story, Phil, he always likes to remember himself as being the first North American to ever wear the yellow jersey at the Tour de France.
As he always reminds me whenever we meet up. We don't see so much of Alex these days, but he does turn up at the bike races in America. Now they've been out for just over 2 hours, and we're over the halfway mark. Through Powerade hydration station now for the peloton. The Movistar boys have got the bags, now they're wondering what to do with them by the look of it. Anybody want this? I'll take it. All right, thanks, mate.
It's so important to keep taking on board those drinks, because if you don't take it as you go through the hydration station, you've got to go back to the team car, and that's all added energy that you're dispensing during the course of the afternoon. Just keep looking at that gap. We're now going out onto the final lap around Aldinga and Snapper Point, and next time around they'll go straight up this mountain. And if Thomas de Kent, Robbie, if he wants to get himself the points to the top of the climb first time around, what kind of gap do you think he needs over the main field?
I think if he even started at the bottom of the climb with a minute he's still going to be fine to take the points because they're not out there giving it everything at the moment. If you look at Ventoso, the only man riding on the front of the peloton, and he's holding this 4-man lead group with the likes of Jack Bauer, Thomas de Gent, Will Clark. Really strong guys out there. Maison, maybe not matching him in terms of power, but added help, 4-man group. So it's not that Ventoso's riding incredibly hard, it's these guys have realised the gap they're allowed to have. So they're fine with that. And Thomas de Gent, he's not interested in pushing it out anymore, just the points. And he knows that this is plenty when he gets to the bottom of the climb the first time to get up there. I just wonder if anyone's going to challenge him for those points on the way up, but I'm sure he's got an agreement with the boys. Listen, I'll do plenty of work. I just want those points on Willunga.
Yep, that's the way it is at the moment, and still Ventoso tries to keep them under control here as he has done an incredible job today so far for BMC.
We'll get up to 100,000 people on the side of the road watching our riders party on the hill, and it is that, isn't it, the party on the hill. We also have the party by the beach because this ride, as Robbie mentioned a little earlier, is split in a way because we have the beach section, then of course up Willunga Hill twice. You can see the crowds building behind us. We're at the finish line. It is one of those great days in Australian sport, and people, locals and those that have travelled here, really get involved. That's our perfect cue to get to Fan Cam. He's done a great job all week. Johnny Stephenson. Steph, over to you.
Well, we are closing in on the pointy end of this year's Santos Tour Down Under for 2017, and I'm on top of Willunga Hill, where later today could very well decide the winner of this year's tour. Now, over the week, I've been taking part in Fan Cam and showcasing what this beautiful state and city has to offer. And if you've missed what I've done over the past 7 days, here's a quick look back. Opening night at the Village last week, where the teams were presented, Birds of Tokyo rocked Victoria Square, and I had my colours lowered by Mia. Yeah! Sunday was family day around the course at Victoria Park with the Booper family ride, and I got to talk to a group of friends taking on the People's Choice Undies run with mixed emotion. $20,000 is magnificent, so I'm sure she's watching from above thinking, who is that guy interviewing him, and he should have his undies on as well.
Well, I think we're all thinking the same thing.
On Monday morning, I got to spend time in the saddle with the one and only, the voice of cycling, Mr. Phil Liggett.
I was very impressed, but there's not much of you, and I needed more protection from the wind.
Tuesday night, and it was the final stage of the women's tour. I then spent a day on the road with a group of Kiwis cycling fanatics.
We had a combined birthday party 1 month ago, and we called it 160. Divide by 2, you get her age.
After catching up with Jens Voigt at the Booper Challenge group meeting on Thursday, I then headed out on the Booper Challenge around the Adelaide Hills.
That's what dreams are made of. I tell you, these hills are meant for men, not mountain goats. Men.
After taking the heartbreaking climb up Checker Hill in my stride, it was time to fly down Gorge Road on my way to the finish line. We have crushed a massive week of the Santos Tour Down Under into Fan Cam this year, but it's not over yet. Tomorrow I'll show you another great event on the Tour Down Under bucket list, and happens right here on Willunga Hill.
Good on you, Johnny boy. There they are. They're all on Willunga Hill, and John is out there amongst the crowd, and he's going to bring us a little bit of the magic from Super Saturday at the Santos Tour Down Under. Huge crowd, over 100,000 people from Aldinga Beach all the way up here, old Willunga Hill. So many cyclists themselves found their way up, and I talked to a few of them before. I said, how are you? They said, I'm good now that I got to the top. Well, our professionals, they do it twice, and it's all on Richie Port. Now, if you want to know anything about the Santos Tour Down Under, go to the website, the Santos Tour Down Under website, and look at Tour Tracker. It has everything about the teams. It's got our athletes. It's got all the information you need. And if you want to ask a question to a guy that knows a lot about this sport and a champion of this sport, hashtag AskRobbieTDU on Twitter, hashtag AskRobbieTDU, and throughout the course of this afternoon and tomorrow we'll attempt to answer some of your questions for Robbie McEwen. It's a beautiful day. The weather's gorgeous, the scenery is wonderful, and the racing's great as well. Let's get back to commentary with the boys.
91 kilometres into the race, 59 to go. It's just come inside 145 as I speak. I think it's 141 they're saying now.
Richie Porte looking very relaxed. I think he's got a lot of confidence in this squad that they brought here to the Santos Tour Down Under, because it is really one of their top squads. When you look at the mixture of experiences they brought, whether it's the Rowan Dennis from Australia, Danilo Wies from Switzerland, Moinard, Ventoso, Scottson, Caruso, it's a solid squad. It could almost be one of their Tour de France squads.
These are the boys from Movistar. They played a great card on stage 2. They had a breakaway for a long time with Sutelin, and they set it up nicely to have a go at Richie Porte on the climb with Gorka Izagirre, and he got second. And I must confess, they flew under our radar that day. We really didn't see that one coming. We're watching it now, though.
But Team Movistar, they're always aggressive at races around the world, and let's not forget they are the winners of the team classification at the World Tour last year. Alejandro Valverde, their leader, won it a couple of years ago, but they're a solid team, and they've always got a number of riders who can come out. So they did, though, lose Gorka Izagirre's brother during the winter transfer season, because in fact he broke his contract with Movistar to move across the ride for the new Bahrain Merida squad. It looks as if his brother Jon Izagirre, very Basque name that is, has really been inspired to move up the slot in the family rankings.
Of course, in Spain, cycling is extremely popular, and if you're a Basque cyclist in the Basque section of Spain, they're bicycle crazy there. So if you're a good bike rider, you are a superstar. Well, just when we alter ours, they're now saying it's gone back up again to 145. The latest check coming. It's yo-yoing all of the time. There's Jaco Finter. He is the champion, number 55, the champion of South Africa, having a chat with Cam Meyer. They were teammates last year on the same Dimension Data team. Cam coming off. There's the heart rate. Oh, it's hardly moving, that heart rate.
104. Very low, I would say. He's very comfortable right now, Robbie.
And that will be the case for all the riders sitting in this peloton behind the BMC team. I was just thinking a few moments ago, because of the lack of wind, there's really nothing to get the heart rates going of all these riders. It's a virtual rest day until the first time they hit Wollonga, or at least the first time across McLaren Flat. Peter Sagan having a cold drink, bit of a stretch. He'll probably ride up the climb one-handed as well, and maybe only on one wheel. But I think before that, he'll be working for Jay McCarthy, who's looking to get himself onto the podium. Jay McCarthy, he'll be looking to try and unseat the injured Izagirre, because it's cutthroat when it comes down to this last climb. World Tour points and a podium spot.
Well, you mentioned just a little bit earlier about payback, and as a sprinter you were happy to be able to pay back to the team working for Simon Gerrans, and well, here I just get the feeling that Peter Sagan, he's got a bunch of young teammates. It's a brand new team for him, this team that he's joined through the winter transfer season. He seems to be happy and enjoying working for his teammates and helping Jay McCarthy to try and get onto the podium. There's McCarthy on the left-hand side there wearing number 16. What an honour to ride alongside the world champ.
It is, and we also saw Peter Sagan on stage 1 leading out Sam Bennett, the young sprinter from the team, the Irishman. So Peter Sagan, he said himself, this is, okay, it's an opportunity for me to win. I know people want to see me win, but it's very good for me to help my teammates if I can, because I expect a lot from those guys this season to help me in the big races like the Classics.
And it's only the 4th time in the history of the race that we've seen a world champion taking part in those rainbow jerseys. Nice view here from our onboard cameras. Here he comes. This is when he bumped and barged his way through the other day. He just goes by, just seems to check in, make way for the world champion.
You see Peter squeezes through every gap, and here and there there's a sorry, excuse me, sort of little wave of the hand to one, say, yep, just let me through there. The last one, the closer they got to that crucial part, there was no more apologies, he just barged his way through. But it is shoulder to shoulder, and it will be again coming to that final turn on the bottom of Wollonga Hill today, be something like this, trying to be at the front and deliver your guy. And there's no room for manners.
And that was where Caleb Ewan said enough was enough, as he about 3 kilometres from the finishing line. They were flying, they were racing for the turn onto Paracombe here, and I really think Peter Sagan
really thought he was going to do something here. He was the first rider onto the slopes.
You might just have spotted there, nearly every rider's got a finger on their brake levers. The one man who didn't have his fingers anywhere near the brake levers was Peter Sagan.
Yeah, and the other man was the man with the camera, because he blew up in that last shot and he quickly faded to the back of the bunch. So, but he got some great pictures before he died. Looking down, as I said, the world champion down there, Peter Sagan. He follows in the wheel tracks of Oscar Camasind, Cadel Evans and Philippe Gilbert as a world champion currently in the event. 55 kilometres left to go. Team Sky moving the men forward now. Now that's very interesting. Team Sky, don't forget about Sergio Henao on the squad as they pull him towards the leaderboard here. At Snapper Point. And then that's the last time.
Just looking at the pedalling style of those riders in the breakaway, Robbie, it looks as if there's a little bit more urgency, and they realise that as we come to the last hour or so of the race, this is the moment when they have to increase their tempo.
It is. They're going to have to start to go for it now, and Thomas de Gendt, he's just paying attention to that time gap, and if it starts to drop any more, you'll see him doing longer, stronger turns on the front just to keep that gap intact. Just wants those mountain points. You know, I'm looking through this overall classification, and we're saying how it's stacked at the top. Just as a reminder, second is Izagirre at 20 seconds, Esteban Chavez at 22, McCarthy at 24, Haas at 27 seconds. In sixth place is Rowan Dennis. Now, he said his job will be to work for Richie Porte, but also try and maintain his placing, because think about the World Tour points, all important to these teams. So they'd like to keep those intact if they can for Rowan. But he's sixth at the moment. From 6th through to 15th place overall, they're all at 29 seconds. They're all just 7 seconds off the podium. And that includes guys like Luis Leon Sanchez, a former winner of this race, Diego Ulissi, former stage winner in Stirling, Rafael Valls, the Spaniard from Team Lotto, the best young rider, Guerrero, Robert Hiesing, Pozzo Vivo, Wilco Kelderman. We're going to see such a good climb.
All big names.
If you look at the time gaps over the years, since 2006, the biggest winning margin has been 25 seconds. So there's a lot of riders could upset Richie Porte today.
And one man who has been a bit of a dark horse, who had some serious bad luck, he sits in 18th place, Sergio Henao. I just noticed Team Sky cruising up the outside. He's at 33 seconds down, but let's not forget he's always ridden extremely well on Wollonga Hill, and he had 2 flat tyres at the same time the other day, and he still managed to finish with most of the favourites.
For me, he's maybe not the danger man to win the stage, but a guy is the danger man to blow everything to pieces, ride as hard as he can all the way to the top, try and get himself on the podium.
The pelotons now driving with different teams on the front across the road. Situated 112 kilometres southwest of Adelaide and just 15 kilometres from the mainland is Kangaroo Island. It's Australia's 3rd largest island and is known as a zoo without fences. It is one of the state's most popular tourist destinations, with picture-perfect open spaces to venture and explore. It has an ocean teeming with fish, beaches rolling with friendly sea lions all year round. And for a rare experience, see the birds of prey in action, learn more about owls, falcons and wedge-tailed eagles as they soar just metres overhead. That's a barn owl, by the way. It's a bit small for a wedge-tailed eagle.
Good spot, Liggett.
But I'll tell you what, Kangaroo Island is a magical place to go. Koalas roam freely there, by the hundreds actually. And we've only had the privilege, Paul and I, of going over there once. But looking down now, we're heading on to Aldinga Beach again. The peloton is packed, but there's a whole change of action at the front now, boys. The tactics are swinging.
Well, it's come to the point now where I think Team BMC are offering the front of the main field to everybody else who wants to try and win this bike race overall, and that's why it's crept back up to the 2-minute margin.
So these are the 4 heading towards the INET sprint, but again, they won't contest this sprint in Aldinga Beach.
So once they swing away from the beach here, they'll pick up the tailwind for the last time, and then they'll be pulling up the sails and heading themselves out towards Wollonga Hill. So I hope you've enjoyed being able to follow us at Tour Down Under and getting involved by the hashtag AskRobbieTDU, and I wonder what other interesting questions we've got to throw at you here this afternoon, Robbie. So we've got one here from OG Jungler. Do you think Caleb Ewan can be a serious stage race contender in this year's Tour de France?
Yes, I do. 100%. No doubt, no hesitation. Big yes from me. He'll be riding the Giro, not the Tour de France. They're aiming at the Tour with Esteban Chavez, but Caleb will ride the Giro. A second on a stage there last year behind Andre Greipel, but he has won a stage in the Vuelta 2 seasons ago in front of Peter Sagan and John Degenkolb. So yes, he will.
And is it right for Orica Scott to keep him out of the Tour de France for maybe another year?
I think he can use that extra 12 months to ripen, get the Giro under his belt and try and finish it, because he's ridden the Giro, he's ridden the Vuelta, but he didn't finish the Giro last year. It'll be a good one for him to try and get through, get that extra ripeness, that toughness that you need.
Well, here's another one from Andy M. Do Jack Bauer's consecutive breaks indicate he plans to win a showcase Grand Tour stage in 2017?
I think even if Jack Bauer hadn't have got in a breakaway at this week's Santos Tour Down Under, he'd still be planning to try and win a Grand Tour stage in a break. But this is good practice. It's good to get in that rhythm, and getting in a break is a bit of an art form. Thomas de Gent's very good at it. It's art and brute force, of course. But when you're going well, you've got to use it, whether it's Grand Tour or any other stage race.
That's Jack Bauer there, wearing number 144 in the dark blue jersey of Quick Step Flooring.
400 metres to go, no sprint in line. There's a lot of interest back in the peloton with the changing patterns of the teams now coming to the fore. Thomas de Gent looks as though he might take him under the banner. If not, it'll be Jack Bauer.
We've done 102 kilometres in the race so far, and that's around about 63 miles of racing.
There we go, a little bit of a select break. Here they come
bringing them towards the line now, and they're going to let the Gent get something out of this breakaway. Bauer and Clark. And the time checks there. But what I have noticed back in the peloton, boys, is that the Abu Dhabi team have moved right up to the front, and they've got Louis Meintjes. Now, we don't always talk about Louis, but this guy can climb.
Well, I actually have got him highlighted in my list of favourites before the start of this race. He's had a quiet start, and he may well, I think he's lost a little bit too much time to be somebody who can think about finishing in the top positions overall. But with a hilltop finish, yes, Louis Meintjes is a very good climber, and UAE Abu Dhabi, they're certainly looking to open up their winning account.
Well, that's right, Paul. Louis Meintjes has lost a bit of time. He's at a minute 19 down on the overall classification in 44th position. So for him, no concern about trying to move up on GC as such, but get a good stage result and get his season underway. And of any stage in this race, this would have been the one where he thought, that's where I'll have a go. Probably Paracombe a little bit too short, bit steep, more for the explosive types or guys 100% in form already. So Meintjes, have a go, although don't rate him amongst the absolute favourites. I'm not expecting him to blow things apart.
No.
I think he prefers the longer climbs, but when we look at Richie Porte's performances on this climb over the last few years, I just think that there are a lot more riders who are in better form than they were on previous occasions, and they will know what Richie Porte's tactic is going to be, because they saw it on stage 2 up to the summit finish in Paracombe. So there'll be a queue of riders trying to get Richie Porte's wheel, and it's just a question of, has he got the firepower to open up that gap again?
I said earlier, does Richie Porte know any other way to ride Wollonga Hill than the way he has over the last 3 years when he's won? The difference is he had to go on the attack at Paracombe, make sure he got into the lead, get as many seconds as possible. Now he's got the jersey, it's defence. He doesn't have to go out and attack. I wouldn't recommend it either, but he's got to react. And whoever's the first one to go, Richie needs to react to that. I think once he does, and he sees it start to split, then he'll go for the win.
2 minutes 10. A lot of teams are taking interest now. They know this is the last sighting of the sea as we head towards the hills of Wollonga. Now the battle really will begin. We're back with the 4 leaders here. 60 kilometers left to ride. they're still piling on the pressure in this breakaway. It really, television doesn't just prove how fast these boys are riding these bikes. They are flying, but they're being contained by a bunch that don't want to let them go. There's the team of Louis Meintjes now. The boys in black, bringing him right through. There could be a little bit of a big battle on the hill today. I've also seen the Sunweb team come through, which might mean Wilco Kelderman is taking an interest, and maybe new boy Chris Hamilton.
Well, they've got 20 kilometres to try and pull back the leading breakaway before they start the climb, and that may well, unless there's a major reaction in the peloton, that may well be enough for Thomas de Gendt, who is in that leading group of 4 riders, to just hold on and get himself the points.
I think Thomas de Gendt has realised this is the moment where the peloton will pick up pace, not so much by a concerted chase, but by what we're seeing here, teams starting to position themselves at the front, and they're all just trying to just be on the front and outdo the next team next to them, which just drives up the overall pace of the peloton without one team deciding we've really got to catch it. It's just an overall pickup in pace where everyone wants to be at the front. That will start to make this gap now drop, and it's up to Ventoso to hold the pace high after 90-something kilometres on the front, just to keep his team out of the wind as long as possible and at the front. It shouldn't be too much longer before we start to see Miles Scottson, the Australian champion, get involved on the front for BMC and keep his team at the head of affairs.
Through this lovely grove of trees here, we ride down to the roads, which will take us now steadily to Wollonga. Same 4 riders who established just into the start of the opening lap when we waved farewell for the first time to McLaren Vale. 44 kilometres left to race, about 27 miles. Setting fair for Wollonga now. It's interesting now, though, the way the teams at the front are really switching around. Ventoso is fighting off all opposition as they come forward, the teams. He gets control of the pace again. But Team Sky are up here. That's for Sergio Henao. Black boys on the right, UAE Abu Dhabi. That's for Louis Meintjes, the South African rider. It's got good composition now.
Well, it has, but I was just looking at the direction of the flag there as they move away now. They're going to pick up the tailwind. There's an indication that the gap has climbed up to 2 minutes and 20 seconds, but just looking at the speed in this main field, I'd be rather surprised to see that go up any more than that, because I'm quite certain we're seeing some high speeds in excess of 50 kilometres an hour now in the peloton.
I'm surprised they've been able to nudge this out to 220 the way that peloton is racing just now. They got the first advantages of the tailwind, of course. Now we've got the undulations here, which are rather short and sharp. They might just get over that hill before the peloton comes into sight. Well, we're saying from the race now, the gap is 2 minutes and 30 seconds. They are still on the up and up in the break of 4.
Great to have your company. This is the Bike Exchange, Stage 5 of the Santos Tour Down Under. McLaren Vale to Wollonga Hill, 151.5 kilometres. And what a race we've had, and what a race we're going to have. Now, look, great sponsorship here of this event, and Naomi James is from Santos. How are you, Naomi?
Very well, thanks, Tim.
Yeah, well, welcome to the coverage. And it's a relationship that's worked so wonderfully well over the past few years.
It has. Santos is really proud to be involved with the Santos Tour Down Under. It's a really great opportunity for us as a South Australian company to support an event that's really important to the community here.
That is a real big thing, isn't it? As we look at some of the overlay of the course of this race, we've seen some fantastic results this week, but the crowds coming out, and the fact that Santos is a South Australian company and a South Australian based company.
Yes, we're headquartered here in Adelaide, and look, this event involves so much more than cycling. It really brings the community together. To have 800,000 people participate and attend an event in a state of 1.6 million just shows you how well supported and loved this event is.
And cycling's pretty big at your house. You've got 3 sons. You're a busy person, aren't you? Sam and Will and Dan, and they're all into their cycling?
Yes, they are all keen cyclists. The 2 oldest will be there tomorrow in the Booper Kids race, so they're very much looking forward to that.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Naomi. And I know that the big sporting events anywhere around the world need good sponsors, and Santos has been exactly that.
Thanks, Tim.
Alrighty, and look, to all the sponsors of the Santos Tour Down Under, I know a collective thank you, because that's what makes these events, these wonderful events, work. Let's get back to commentary.
Speeding through the houses here as we race back into McLaren Vale for the final time.
Well, I'll tell you why that gap's gone up, Phil, because the last time we got a quick glimpse there at Thomas de Gent, he'd gone to the front and he was almost powering it himself. And when we listened to Robbie before saying how does he get into the breakaways, he sits on the front of the main field for about 10 minutes at 500 watts to see what kind of gap he can get, and then he realizes the breakaway is going to succeed, and he realizes now, as far as he's concerned, today his race ends at the top of the mountain. Yes, I know he's got to finish, but he's got to get this breakaway to succeed to get maximum points at the top of the climb.
Well, we saw the bunch picking up pace as multiple teams tried to get to the front. They were really increasing their speed, but the gap was still going up. When we got a shot of the breakaway, well, no surprise at all to see Thomas de Gent on the front, tucked to that time trial position, hands draped over the handlebars, really winding things up, because he knows he needs to maintain that gap. And as you said, his race is over effectively, as far as that mountain jersey is concerned, at the top of the climb the first time.
Well, the gap has just improved to 2 minutes 35 seconds now, so another 5 seconds nearer towards the Wollonga Hill. The peloton has fanned out across the road. Lots of teams have put men on the sharp end. I think we might see marginally Ventoso still holding on to his lead. Let's have a look at the stories so far on this 5th day of 6 days in the Santos Tour Down Under. It all began from McLaren Vale at just under 3 hours ago. The riders facing up to the longer stage, to the top of Wollonga Hill, 151.5 miles. A kilometre, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, it didn't take very long for the breakaway to get established. A very rapid start, and eventually once they got themselves sorted out, it was quite a long time before the youngster Maison from France, FDJ, got himself into the breakaway. Admirably helped there, I think, by Jack Bauer, because he knew they needed an extra pair of legs.
4 of them clear as we watch these lovely dolphins play in the beautiful clear blue waters just off the beach at Aldinga. We lapped round on terra firma as the peloton hung back at around about 2 minutes for much of the time. Simon Gerrans, 4 times winner, looks nice and happy, but he's not in a position he wants to be in at this stage of the race, unlike last year. 2:15 for the boys as they continue to go through McLaren Vale and on through Wollonga.
Well, in the early part of the race, all of the pacemaking was done by Team BMC, and that was just to keep the 4-man breakaway pegged at around about the 2-minute margin. When they came through to the sprint point at Snapper Point, which is a beautiful part of Aldinga Beach, it was Jérémy Maison of France and FDJ that got himself a 3-second time bonus.
63 kilometres done of the 151. The first-year professional having more than his fair share of the limelight as the peloton trailed at 1 minute and 50 seconds. Huge crowds marking this stage through the Powerade hydration point. This is just before the start of the old Wollonga Hill climb, by the way. They loaded up for another trip around the peninsula, Floria Peninsula, back down to Aldinga Beach. Another sprint coming up and taking us to the 103-kilometre point. They weren't interested in the II-Net sprint points. They just kept going. Thomas de Gent was on the front.
Well, Thomas de Gent, his thought as he went through the sprint point at Aldinga Beach was to try and get himself a little bit more of an advantage over the main field.
So all that now remains is to get over the climb of the Wollonga Hill twice. The first time we just do a lap of 22 kilometres and return to the top of the climb for the finish. Well, seconds cover an awful lot of riders. Realistically, there's probably 20 riders could, if it all worked out well, win this race. That's a fact. But reality says it doesn't normally happen. There's a win bonus on top of the climb of 10 seconds for the first rider. That would halve the deficit for Izagirre. Then he's got to get 10 seconds over Richie Porte, and it would be job done. Now we've got to change at the front now. We've got the Aussie champion, the new champion of Australia now, Miles Scotson, coming up on the outside. The team of Will Clark, Cannondale, Drapac, pushing their men to the fore as well.
Well, that's the man in 3rd position there with the most to gain from the success of this breakaway to the top of the climb. And I think now we're looking at about 15 kilometres to the bottom of the climb, and they're actually increasing their advantage still to 2.5 minutes. Jack Bauer, well, second day in a row for him to be in the breakaway.
Sharp right turn, narrow undulations as they continue. And I'm just wondering if in fact this could be the move for the Canadian Michael Woods, who says he's riding pretty well on Cannondale Drapac as they move their men forward. They've also got the previous winner back in 2013, Tom Hilter-Slachter. He doesn't seem to have the same form these days. But two more men to conjure with as the race now continues. Their first problem though is the gap is still 2 minutes 35 seconds. Those boys are not waiting as they approach the hill. Little journey across the vines as we look at the peloton. This is when you get some idea of how quick these boys are going. They're in excess of 44 kilometres an hour. They're picking up favourable winds now, and the four men up front are up for it. 2:35 and holding, the gap representing nearly 2 kilometres. That should be enough to see the four leaders onto the hill first.
You see the Astana riders on the far side in that turquoise jersey. As you said earlier, Phil, one man we haven't really talked a lot about, Luis Leon Sanchez. He's won this race in the past. In fact, he finished second on the stage down here to Wollonga. When it finished at the bottom, the man who won the stage on that occasion was a comeback kid by the name of Alberto Contador.
I actually think, you know, that he could be another name to conjure with, because he said he's in good condition and he feels good. He's a past winner of this race. We've seen nothing of him all week. He didn't get up there on Paracombe, but he knows this course as well as any of them. If he is feeling good, he's got three teammates who've come to the front. Somebody sent a message somewhere.
And he's at 29 seconds in the overall, so he's really only 7 seconds off the podium. Looking incredibly lean to us from at the start of the week, Luis Leon Sanchez.
There he is, the third place rider in that line of Astana riders, wearing number 101.
Well, while we're waiting for the riders to get to the hill, look at this man sprinting it out here. Caleb Ewan, who's becoming the quickest sprinter in the world just now, Robbie. He gets low enough.
He gets lower than anybody out there. A lot of people made the comparisons to Mark Cavendish, that low slung style over the handlebars. Well, Caleb gets his head sometimes even lower than the handlebars. And a shot I saw the other day from side on, the top of his helmet was further forward than his front wheel. But a really unique position. Now, why doesn't everybody adopt that position? You've got to have the right body shape for it. He's got relatively short arms and legs. Lets him get very compact without trying to have to contort himself into that position. Others that get down that low, they've got nowhere for their arms and legs to go. They can't develop full power in the sprint. So you've got to have the right body type. Ewan and Cavendish, quite a similar build, although Caleb Ewan is quite a lot smaller even than Cav.
I just wonder, when he gets down so low over the front end of his machine, is he not losing that little bit of traction in the back wheel?
Takes a little bit of weight off the back wheel. You start to see it skip around just slightly, lose a little bit of traction. I can imagine in the wet it could be very treacherous to sprint in that position. Or if he hits, I saw him on stage one, just go over a manhole cover that skipped it up a bit. And I've heard more than one experienced rider say any further forward and pretty soon you'll be kissing the tarmac.
Well, there he is down there, number 6. While we've been doing that, look at the clock. It's 2 minutes 50 now. They're approaching a 3-minute gap. These boys have suddenly started to motor. The peloton are juggling their cards now, and it's costing them time. South Australia is framed by 3,800 kilometres of coastline. It's unspoilt waters. Mediterranean climate mixed with saline wetlands, it's why it's regarded as the country's seafood capital. Eyre Peninsula on the state's west coast is home to less than 4% of SA's population, but produces 60% of its seafood. The Seafood Trail will lead you on a journey from Whyalla to Streaky Bay, where you can experience aquaculture unlike anywhere else. This looks good enough to eat, boys. And enjoy a tantalising smorgasbord of world-class seafood. No time to eat for these boys now. They grab it on the run. It's all fast food down here, and
the four boys up front have really put the pressure on. They've taken advantage of a tactical manoeuvre by the teams in the pack. The pack is very definitely in a calm here.
I'm not sure it's that calm, because you can actually see, if you look along the spread of the road there, you've got all the different teams starting to line up. Another team moving forward in the yellow striped helmets there, that's Lotto Jumbo NL. You've got Astana over on the right hand side. You've got Movistar a bit further over in the darker jerseys, and still missing from the front end, from the front row, is Orica Scott. They are waiting for the last moment, and it was interesting what you said a little earlier, Robbie, about Simon Gerrans maybe having to toughen up their approach to the climb for Esteban Chavez.
And I think that's the best option for Orica Scott on this stage. Make it as hard as possible for Esteban Chavez to make the first climb tough. He's a guy who thrives when the climbs are longer, when it's been a tougher day. Because yes, it's a hilltop finish, but it's not a mountain. Esteban Chavez is a specialist in the high mountain, so the more they have to put in on the climbs, the better it will be for Esteban. Also, the better it will be for Sergio Henao and, well, a number of other climbers. So I think we'll really start to see it split up. But Simon Gerrans, I think, will be saved for the last time up.
Well, the turquoise colours in the centre there. The third man is a former winner of this race back in 2005, Luis Leon Sanchez. And we have a feeling he's going to exercise his legs on the climb next time through. We're heading towards Wollonga at the moment. On the right, Movistar. They are the riders who've got the second place man on the squad in Gorka Izagira. BMC getting a little bit crowded out on the left, but they've still got the ochre jersey right up there. As Paul has said, Lotto Jumbo are getting into the mix as well. We'll see if Robert Hessing can do anything about that. This is Jack Bauer wearing his red numbers, the most competitive rider yesterday, which he was along with Cameron Meyer. Caught 3 kilometres out from the line after a very inspired ride. Gap is good, 2 minutes 50. He's the leader on the road of this race just now. He's recovered all his lost time. I don't think, though, he's got any thoughts of pulling on an ochre jersey by the end of the day.
Well, I think when these guys took off, the thought would have been, get out there, have a go, but probably going to get caught. And all the time they were sitting at 2 minutes and just under, they would have still been thinking, we're not going to win this stage. They've now got 250. If a guy like Thomas de Gent can accomplish his goal of taking those King of the Mountain points, then he hears through the radio, Thomas, you still have 2 minutes. He will pin the ears back and start thinking about a stage win. And if he had 2 minutes at the top, he's going to take a lot of chasing. We've seen him stay away many times before. And there's a lot of indecision here in the peloton. Nobody really doing the work. So don't be surprised if it pretty soon goes over 3 minutes.
Well, in fact, Robbie, it just did. Race Radio just announced a few moments ago, 3 minutes and 5 seconds. But we always get caught out on this circuit like this when you start to approach Wollonga Hill. The main field always slows down a little bit while they get themselves psychologically prepared for the charge to the foot of Wollonga Hill. And I think we'll see a good minute and a half get slashed off this advantage just on the slopes of the climb.
Well, you always see this final part of the stage to Wollonga Hill. There's 3 decisive moments. The first charge across McLaren Flat, where riders who know that normally they'll get dropped the first time up the hill, well, they do their work along that long, slightly down section towards Wollonga, and then that drag up. And then the next lap, there's riders that do that again, and then the riders on the climb. So they'll get big chunks taken off their gap.
The last visit into McLaren Vale before we line up for Wollonga Hill. It's a good time to see what Richie Porte thinks of the climb. After all, he's won this very stage for the last 3 years. Let's ask him what makes this stage so special.
It's not the hardest climb. It's not compared to what we do in Europe, but for this race at this time of the year, it's a bit of a lung buster. I'd say it's sort of up around the 8 minutes. I think we climb it, and but the thing with it is it's just special. It's like a Tour de France crowd on there. It's probably the one day that means the most to all the riders. Maybe not the sprinters, but the crowds that are out there. It's incredible. You don't see crowds like that other than the Tour de France.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. You don't. And there he is down there, number 23. His big moment is on the horizon now. He's looking around, checking numbers, checking who's moving around him, working out who is going to attack him once we start the climbs of the Wollonga Hill.
Richie Porte has done it all right so far, and all that remains is what's left of this stage for victory tomorrow in Adelaide. Well, I think there's no doubt now, lads, that these four are going to make the hill before the peloton, because they've been pushing it out just on to 3 minutes. Jack Bauer's still full of fight there. Thomas de Gendt just wants points. That's why he went away right from the gun. He's in second wheel here. This is the long straight road now as we're bound for Wollonga.
It's always difficult as well, I think, Robbie, when you come into this climb at Wollonga, because on the flat circuits, the 3 circuits around Aldinga Beach, we are using big gears and rolling along at speeds 47, 48 kilometres an hour. Then all of a sudden you're going to the complete opposite of your gear ratios.
You make that violent transition from rolling the big gears and riding on the flat at higher leg speed to hitting that first steep part of the climb out of Wollonga, and it's a big shock to the system. One thing I thought was funny then, listening to Richie Porte talking about Wollonga Hill, saying it's about an 8-minute effort. It must have been really, really hard, because he forgot that, well, at least on Strava, which he uploaded 2 years ago, 2015 edition of this race, he did it in 6 minutes and 39 seconds. I was talking to Richie a few months ago. We were doing the previews for this race, and I said, Richie, have you got your power file from last year, your effort on Wollonga Hill? And he sent it to me. Got permission from the team. They said, that's fine, you can share it. He did it in 6 minutes 19 last year, 20 seconds faster than the year before. His average power was just amazing. It was up in the mid-500s average power on the climb.
Wow. Well, let's wonder just exactly how he's going to be now, because I just think with the confidence, I mean, he knows he really wants to win with panache. He really wants to win with the ochre jersey on his shoulders. But in order to win the stage, he's going to have to call his teammates in to do some serious chasing to pull these guys back.
Well, the race jury just announcing that for the second day in succession they've awarded the man with the red number, Jack Bauer, as the most competitive rider of the day. That's well deserved again for a second day by this man from New Zealand, rides for the Belgian Quick-Step Floors team, because he has been just that. Now, can he continue through to the end and try and finish it off?
I'm just thinking, if you start to work out all of the permutations and calculations, if Thomas de Gendt survives and gets himself maximum points at the top of this climb, and then Richie Porte was to win the stage and get the King of the Mountains, we'll have a bit of a showdown tomorrow when we go down to the finish.
Well, that's right. And then I think the advantage swings back to Thomas de Gendt for Montefiore Hill on that Adelaide street circuit, and they have 2 King of the Mountain points during that 90-kilometre, let's call it not a criterium, a circuit race. So Thomas de Gendt, even if Richie wins the King of the Mountain today, he's still in with a big shout of win this KOM jersey, so he knows the job at hand.
I suppose the difference is that it's secondary for Richie Porte and Esteban Chevers. It's primary for the man who's currently wearing that jersey, number 61, Thomas de Gendt.
Yes, absolutely right. He's gambling, because I don't think he'll be there at the very end when they still get points, but we'll see how it works out for him. He's certainly raced for it, that's for sure. Massive crowd on top of Wollonga Hill here. This is where the finishing line will be. The club cyclists have been testing the sprint all day as they come off the top of the hill. Just look, I think we're one of the biggest crowds we've ever seen in 19 years of cycling here. Fun and games on the climb, a real festival atmosphere. They come up here twice. The first time is a sort of rehearsal. The second time is to finish it all off on the top. It's a great sight.
And a great atmosphere as well, and I think, as Robbie alluded to just a little bit earlier on, it's almost like a Tour de France-sized crowd here, and I think once we come up, the riders appreciate that. But I'm still a little surprised at the fact that they're not really winding it up fully.
It's going to be a big explosion the first time they hit the climb. This big compact bunch will be all over the road on the climb of the Wollonga Hill. The Trek boys are really putting the back into it. Now, does that mean that Jarlinson Pantano is going to have a little dig as well? They do have the best young rider on their team.
Well, it's almost 2 kilometres the distance between the leading 4 riders and the main field. I'm pretty certain they'll pull them back, because as we see the gap, it's confirmed at around about 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Once the main field hits that climber, they will not slow down at all. They will have a speed probably 4 or 5 kilometres an hour faster than the four-man breakaway.
They will do, and at the moment the field is on that false flat down. You go into this dip on McLaren Flat. The breakaway, on the other hand, they've already started the drag up towards Wollonga, and it's on that section where they'll really start to lose some time. And it's from now that the positioning, the battle at the front really begins. Look on the left-hand side. Lotto Jumbo haven't been really visible much in this race. They've got Robert Geesink. He's also in that group of riders at 29 seconds in the overall classification. They're trying to get him at the front, and as every team tries to do that, you'll start to see the time gap seriously drop.
So we're racing towards the start of the climb. I noticed that the best young rider in the race, Ruben Guerrero, was also being brought right up to the front by his team, Trek Segafredo. We're in for a good battle now.
Yes, certainly. I'd have to say that all of these guys are starting to get a little bit nervous. Well, if you've been following us at Tour Down Under and being involved, there's plenty of questions you can still put to Robbie at hashtag AskRobbieTDU. So let's see what else we've got in store for Robbie McCune. I think you've been enjoying answering plenty of these questions, haven't you, Robbie?
I have.
This is from Retro Racer 31. What mental battles do the riders go through whilst climbing the hills?
Well, it depends what type of rider that you are, but you know, for the guys at the front racing for the general classification, it's a battle of how much they can hurt themselves, how much pain they can endure, trying to crack their rivals. We're at the other end of the peloton for the sprinters. It's a battle on multiple fronts. It's the physical one, how much can you hurt yourself, but you start to ask yourself the questions, why am I even doing this? But you keep the big picture in mind, and I found the easiest way to get over the mental battle was just not to fight it, was mentally switch off. It's like I flicked a switch and went into a bit of a trance to just not even think about it.
Well, here's another one here. Robbie, what do you think about the Portuguese rider who we just saw a few moments ago in the white jersey, the best young rider, Ruben Guerrero?
Well, we're really discovering him in this Tour Down Under. I knew absolutely nothing about him before this race. But no, we've definitely discovered that he is a great young talent up there on Paracombe. I'll be interested to see what he can do today, if he can back that up and really prove himself on a tougher climb.
Interesting, that question came from Portuguese Sport. The next one from Michel Short. What's the most weight that you've lost in a tour?
I think in my first Tour de France, I started at 67.5 kilo and I finished at 64. I was lean when I started.
So it's a good 3.5 kilos.
I was a skeleton when I finished.
Wow, well, riders can lose up to 2 to 2.5 kilos in a day if they don't hydrate properly.
Well, boys, it's now 2.5 minutes the gap. We're on the straight, and this time it is a straight. Gone are the cones now. We are heading straight up the hill for the first time. Jack Bauer's chatted with young Jeremy Maison as if to say, just keep calm. Now we'll see. I don't think you'll keep Thomas to gain calm.
I just wonder if anybody's going to challenge him. He has been alongside Jack Bauer, one of the powerhouses of that breakaway group of 4 riders. We've covered 122 kilometres since this race started, and in fact I make it about 25 kilometres to go to the finish once you come through Wollonga. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy between us and the graphic at the top, but looking through the heat haze, the main field is still spread right out across the road.
But that's not to say they're not really going fast. It's just the intensity from every team trying to get their team leader up to the front. So all the teams right across the road, but that pace really picking up, because since we mentioned it about 5 minutes ago, the break has lost 35 seconds and dropping all the time.
Well, you're right, Robbie, because in fact I'm getting information from Race Radio that there are a number of riders already in difficulty at the back of the main field. Those are the new colours over to the right-hand side of the new team from Bahrain. And I think it's quite a classy jersey. That it's almost a classical racing jersey from the 1950s and 60s.
It is. I really do like the look of it, and it's great to see the Middle East, the Emirati getting involved in cycling, both at UAE, Abu Dhabi and Bahrain. Bahrain, a massive presence in triathlon. They have a team that, of course, has the winner of the last couple of Hawaii Ironman tries, Jan Frodeno, the German. So now making their presence felt in cycling. So good to see their involvement.
Well, And now this is the charge, eyes down as they head towards Wollonga and the start of the climb. The peloton are racing towards the climb here as if it was the finish of the race. Because once on the climb, it is literally every man for himself. Will Clark has now dropped off from the leading group. To be expected, Will is not a big climber. He's a big man from Campbelltown in Tasmania. But we're looking at the three leaders now. Jack Bauer at the front as the peloton come on to the lower slopes as well. Who will launch the first attack?
I'm not sure we'll see the attack happening here, but look at the way that Sunweb are really putting the pressure on there. This rider here, he's
as possible for Wilco Kelderman, another pure climber, better on those longer climbs. So the longer and harder that it is, the better he'll go. Jack Bauer, he is still virtual leader on the road by 1 minute and 3 seconds still. Hey, by the top, I don't think he will be.
We'll see. 2.5 minutes and 1 full lap to go once we get through the top. This is not a dead breakaway. This is a possibility. Somebody like Thomas de Gent might stay away on this course. It all depends what we go on to the full circuit with at the top of the hill. Team Sky are moving their man through. Sergio Henao in the black jerseys on the left.
You can see riders slipping backwards now as we look. There's number 2, the man I would expect to see on the final ascent. That is Esteban Chavez. Number 41, Geraint Thomas. 31 is the rider we were talking about just a few moments ago, Wilco Kelderman.
Yes, he's got a big chance. Esteban Chavez, of course, he is the man. And C181, Cam Meyer, former winner of this race. I think that's why he was called back yesterday from the break to save himself for today, and he's right up at the sharp end, number 181.
And moving up on the left, we saw Richie Port, and behind him, Rowan Dennis. He'll be saving himself for the second time up the climb. But Richie right behind his ex-teammates from Team Sky, just passing Geraint Thomas, number 41. In the middle, Pozzovivo, number 97 from AG2R. So really everyone's starting to get themselves in position. And Team Sunweb, they look like they're moving up to try and make things as hard as possible. A big presence on the front now.
Well, Cam Meyer's power, look at that. It was up to almost 500 watts and his heart rate was tickling 160.
Watch out for Chris Hamilton. He's just been put in place by Simon Geschke, the young Australian rider on the pro team now. He's been moved up into 8th place. He could be significant here. There he goes, number 33. He's racing to grab the front wheels of the riders. Well, this is a mixing up now as we start the climb. The world champion Peter Sagan looks to me as though he's not going to take part in this battle.
Yeah, I think you're right. We should not really underestimate the power of in the breakaway, Thomas de Gent. He could now all of a sudden become an extremely powerful ally to Jack Bauer.
Well, I said earlier, if they get over the top with 2 minutes, I rate de Gent as a real chance. And here's an attack off the front. So Sunweb really trying to rev things
Chris
up.
Hamilton.
Well, we talked about Chris Hamilton. He's at 53 seconds on the overall. So their team leader is going to be Wilco Kelderman, but he wants a hard race. So Hamilton has gone out and done just that, followed by a rider from Bahrain, and behind that, well, it's BMC setting the tempo for Richie Port.
Chris Hamilton, the under-23 road race champion of Australia last year. He's a real talent. He's now signed onto a World Tour team here, and he's laying down the first moves. Meanwhile, up the road, only 3 of them left. There's the overall standings in the King of the Mountains for you, but de Gent should get the lead at least first time up the hill. It's 16 points. He'll double his advantage over the top. And this guy, Jeremy Maison, I don't know anything about him. He's a first-year professional. Steve Bauer clearly welcomed in the breakaway, and he's a good climber as well.
I think you meant Jack Bauer. Steve Bauer.
Steve Bauer, he's watching these days. Sorry, yes, Jack Bauer, yes.
Jack Bauer, I think he did a very good job in the early part when this breakaway was forming. Now, these are the difficulties that are happening at the back end of the main field. One of the big sprinters, Sam Bennett, in difficulty there for Ireland.
Well, he's not going to be in the spin. That was Pat Bevan, I think.
Well, this is Chris Hamilton off the front, and that is Giovanni Visconti, who's come across from the Bahrain team. So Visconti, last year with Movistar, a very good rider uphill of Visconti. He's also been instructed to get out, make things tough. So he's gone with Hamilton. Now,
but there's no panic yet from Team BMC. I noticed they've got 3 riders on the front. It's 1 kilometre to go to the top of the climb. And still Thomas de Gent is actually pedalling now with a very invigorated style. He realises this is a great move, and the gap, we expected it to plummet. It's down now to 1 minute and 50 seconds, very smartly.
Although a lot of people from Bendigo getting pretty excited with Chris Hamilton on the move here.
Well, you saw the lineup there from BMC, and on the front was Damiano Caruso, behind him Rowan Dennis, and then Richie Porte. So they're really starting to close this down. Chris Hamilton, he is still a threat. He may be at 53 seconds, but they can't afford to let him go, and he's got a good ally with him in Visconti. But I think that could spell the end to the breakaway. They're going to hang on for a while longer, and De Kent still has his mind on just one thing.
All Thomas De Kent in that spotted jersey of the Subaru King of the Mountains competition wants is to get around the corner and get himself the maximum points.
And we are 600 metres from the 16 points that De Kent has broken away from the start of this race to obtain. A very brave and bold move by him. Jack Bauer setting the pace. Jack, I don't think will try to stop De Kent because Jack doesn't feature in this competition. Can't be too sure about Jeremy Maison though, because he's looking a bit frisky on the back wheel. The crowd are going to drag them up now, up this climb. I must say they're extremely orderly as well. 23 kilometres to go. The last lap is 22. This lady's not in the race, but looks like Lucy Betchell actually from Queensland, pedalling a bike up the hill.
Just getting her 5 seconds of fame. But I saw Jack Bauer look across at De Kent before he hit the front, as if to say, I'm going to do a good strong turn here. The whole bunch now on the part of the climb where it evens out a bit. They're over the steepest part of the climb. The speed will really go up. Jack Bauer looked across, get my wheel, I'm going to do a big turn, and here's De Kent.
Here we go. Yes, De Kent's going for the points here, and he's done all he can do so far, and that's take the outright lead in the King of the Mountains. Bauer will go through in second place. He's not going to challenge here, and third is Maison.
Talk about judging your effort to perfection.
And Maison has been put in a little bit of trouble there. There's a gap of about 5 or 6 metres. De Kent just making sure with that final acceleration as they pass under the finish line and get the bell. Last drinks have now been called.
But listen to the crowd bringing these. This is why these riders come to Australia in the month of January. It's for the atmosphere, for the sun, and for the great competition.
But I still think BMC are playing a very clever, astute tactical game, Robbie, because they're not panicking. They've allowed this little attack to go clear, but when you want to chase in the final 20 kilometres of this race, you've got to have strength in numbers. They don't want to go too hard at this point and blow away their men.
And I think that's what they have done to a certain extent, but I would expect the rest of the BMC team to still be somewhere in the peloton. Caruso driving this pace quite hard. He's a very handy climber, but I'd be surprised if they've dropped the others out of the group. Of course, Ventosa will be gone, done all that work all day, but you'll see other BMC riders, whatever's left, come back to the front, because those three guys can't be left alone to do this whole last 23 kilometres on their own.
Chris Hamilton, the youngster from Bendigo, in Victoria here, picking up Ventosa's wheel, or Visconti's wheel, I beg your pardon, as they continue up towards the top. The clock is ticking on, remember. It's getting a little bit big, this gap. It's down on the plateau, then downhill, around and back up the hill again. Here he comes, Visconti. Oh, gritting his teeth, the youngster too. As he hangs on there, former under-23 road race champion of Australia.
Getting organised on the left-hand side is Team Sky now. They will try and set their man Sergio Henao up. As Visconti won the King of the Mountains in the Giro d'Italia a couple of years ago, but I think it was quite sensible to allow a two-man move to accelerate. We're now starting to see what that gap on the line. It's 1 minute and 40 seconds. So yes, Jack Bauer is still the virtual leader on the road, but only by around about 10 seconds.
Oh no, it's not there yet, because it's based on Richie Porte, of course. So we've still got a nice little lead here. There's Richie Porte looking quite cool, calm and collected. Rowan Dennis seems to be the man that's going to hang out with him now at the moment, along with Damiano Caruso.
We're giving it a 1 minute 45 seconds to the main field. There's number one, Simon Gerrans. He's actually pedaling quite comfortably there.
He's a little bit down the pan though at the moment, as the main field are coming up the climb. The leaders, 3 of them left now, are charging along the plateau. Then it's to plunge down. Then we're on the hill again. These are the 3 leaders. What do you think, Rob? Enough time?
I don't think it's enough time, but I know one thing for certain. De Kent and Jack Bauer will not give an inch They're not thinking tactically, they're just riding as hard as they possibly can. What was telling there was Maison struggled a bit over the top of the climb, and he's just missed a turn. He called Jack Bauer in between. He really needs to recover. He's suffering just sitting in the wheel of these two riders.
1:55 timed against the peloton on that board, 1:45 for the two chasers. I suspect the two chasers will be picked up pretty quickly. Then it's a real pursuit. This is a false flat, and remember the years gone by. You remember Matthew Lloyd went straight off into the trees with sunstroke when it was so hot one year.
It was an incredibly hot day, and his body chose a very bad time to shut down on him, and he was very, very lucky.
He doesn't remember crashing. He doesn't remember the fall at all.
And he was relatively unscathed as well. And lucky he didn't hit one of these large gum trees on the side of the road, so came out of that quite well. But fortunately today, a bit cooler. A lot cooler than it was in the Barossa on day one.
Yes, oh my goodness me, yes.
Well, there's Visconti, number 81. He's been pulled back into the fold. They very smartly accelerated. And look at the way Peter Sagan's just moving up away through the main field. But from the first 5 riders over the top of the climb, none of the other riders in the top 3 in the overall standings in the Subaru competition got points. So Esteban Chavez has now been sincerely overtaken there by Thomas de Gent. Now he's got to hope that Chavez doesn't get up there towards the end of today's stage.
Well, Chavez was 2 points down on de Gent and Richie Porte, scored no points there. With just a couple of points on offer tomorrow, it's only a Category 4. So effectively Chavez taken out of the competition now.
Well, don't forget there's still points on the final ascent, and there's still 16 points. So if Chavez is going for the stage victory, he could make for a very exciting race tomorrow. But he's got to try and win the stage now if he wants to stay in that competition.
And he'd have to outsprint de Gent tomorrow on Montefiore Hill.
That might be difficult.
I think so. So all about the stage win. I know Chavez really wants to get one. And it's been quite a long time since an international rider has won a stage at the Tour Down Under. Today will be the 12th stage in a row if an Australian wins. The last international winner was in 2015, stage 6, Walter Whippet in Adelaide.
He doesn't just go to the bar at night, he actually studies the form. Good lad, Rob.
I was in the bar and someone told me that.
Oh, okay. Well, I like an honest man too. There's the capture of Will Clark. He gave it his best shot, but the hill was a little bit too far. Ian Stannard is the first man over the top. He's done well to get over the hill at all. Ian Stannard, but he has done so. I think Dan Limpy's just burst through to the front too for Orica Scott. Now this is serious. Oh, it's Damien Housen who's gone through to the front now, so he started the hard work. I'm not so sure I can share all your enthusiasm for a catch here, because I've got a feeling there might still be a little bit left in the tank of those two riders.
Damien Housen's got a score to settle with Jack Bauer. If you remember yesterday, he blew up and he said, well, you must be behind the motorbike. I'm doing 600 watts. Or Damien Housen, he is now having another crack.
Good for him. Richie Porte has come safely up the climb now with one full lap to go. Rowan Dennis, who once beat Richie Porte to win this race by 2 seconds, now on the same side as Richie Porte. He guards him as they come over the top. Will they catch up though? The official time gap over the top of the hill was 1 minute and 55 seconds to these 3 riders. Now there's about 20 kilometres or so left to ride. Now, it looks to me as though Thomas de Gent is starting to feel a little bit tired, but hey, he's got an overall lead in that Subaru King of the Mountains now. It could still go wrong on the last ascent, but he's done exactly what he set out to do so far. Let's get the lead.
I'm going to tip these guys will need at least 60 seconds lead.
I thought you were going to say 6 minutes.
At the bottom of the climb. You and I'd need 6.
I'd need more than 6 minutes.
Yeah, but I think
you reckon 60 seconds?
I reckon if they don't have at least 60 seconds, they're not even a chance. And I would think they would probably lose up to a minute and a half on the climb when the best climbers in this race start to charge towards a stage win.
Well, we're on this kind of a false flat. We're on the plateau section of Wollonga before we plunge down back towards the vineyards, and then we turn left and go back through Wollonga itself. And then we shoot up the hill for the second and the last time. Magnificent crowd, one if not the biggest crowds I've seen on Wollonga Hill, and we've seen a few people up there over the years. Damien Housen's job now, once again, is to chase down Jack Bauer like he did yesterday. Well, he didn't, in fact. Bauer cracked him.
Well, he looked pretty powerful on the climb, Jack Bauer, but I just think now, when we're looking at the main field, there's several teams trying. It's not just one team. It's not Orica Scott. It's not Sky. Jack Bauer is still the virtual leader by around about half a minute, and he still looks like he's got the power. He's obviously on a mission this afternoon.
But I just wonder, the combination to think about, Paul, is that 3 guys away, 3 time bonuses finished. That helps Richie Porte. It's up to the others to chase them down.
And that's why there hasn't been that big urgency from Team BMC to pull them all the way back in. But the other teams are starting to show the urgency themselves and show how much they want to win the stage. Team Sky and Orica Scott both riding hard on the front of the peloton. They know Richie Porte is realistically out of reach on GC. But they want to win stages. Chavez wants to win and Enau wants to win. But Sky, they've been up there. Danny Van Poppel, quite good. But they don't have a win. Sky like to win.
Good point.
And you've got to wonder how much gas has Jack Bauer got in the tank after that long breakaway yesterday, getting caught at just 3 kilometres to go.
And it's 3 men against the bunch. And back in the bunch here, there are a lot of riders who will start to come to the front and do the work, because they know once they get to the climb, there's nothing left for them to do. So between here and Wollonga, the town at the bottom of the hill, they will give it everything, and that's where the time, it'll just start to tumble. It'll be like snow melting in the sun.
I was actually going to say 2.5 men in the break, because I think Jeremy Maison's starting to suffer just a fraction.
And I think there's 2.5 men on the front of the peloton right now, and his name's Ian Stannard.
Yeah, he's a beast. He really is a beast, Ian Stannard, and he's going to ride as hard as he can. I'm a little surprised that the gap hasn't started to come down, but if they can get to the top of the descent, they're not going to lose very much.
Now this is a very, very quick descent, Rob. We're going to get high speed. These boys at the moment are freewheeling because, quite frankly, they can't pedal any faster, but this is a super fast descent.
100 kilometres an hour down this descent, and I'm sure pretty soon we'll get a shot as they start to approach, going up into the 80s,
well, we're getting
85,
focus, 85 at the moment.
86, so that's still building, and they're not on the steepest part just yet, 90 kilometres an hour. So let's get another shot if that ticks over 100, because as they go around the next bend, it dips down. They're not even on the steepest part. 90k an hour hasn't got steep yet.
No, it'll push to 100, you're right.
And the gap has come down to 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Wow, 1 minute 20 seconds coming directly from the race as we descend at 91 kilometres an hour. So there's no longer our man Jack Bauer in the overall lead now. We go back to the peloton. Richie Porte remains the ochre jersey in this race. Young Jeremy Maison in his first World Tour event, in his first season as a pro, living the dream on the South Australian roads.
Now, we saw the speedo tick up into the 90s with just these 3 riders, but back in the peloton, the advantage with the numbers rushing out of each other's wheels, coming out of the slipstream. These guys will easily be doing over 100 kilometres an hour. That'll whittle that gap away even more.
Well, there is the peloton from the air, flying off this ridge here. We saw the hills from afar. Now in the distance you can actually see Aldinga Beach and Snapper Point. We're looking the other way now as these boys race back down to Wollonga at ultra high speed. They can't even pedal either. It's a question of just get to the bottom and continue the chase. They've knocked off just 20 seconds or so.
And that's a surprise, because to me I would give the advantage to the breakaway to hold on to his advantage on the downhill part of the course. Once we get to the flats and head back towards Wollonga, Robbie, there's probably going to be almost a 10 kilometres an hour average difference between the 3 men in the front who'll be doing 45 k's an hour to the peloton who'll be pushing it up to in excess of 50.
And that's why I ventured to say now, no chance to win the stage, because the peloton has got rolling. They want the stage win. So it's not just all about the GC. Sky and Orica, they want to win this stage, and that's why they're going to pull the brake back. No getting tactical about, oh, they're only so far behind, we can let them stay in front. None of that.
And I'm just thinking, when I see the black and blue helmets of Team Sky on the front, the last guy to stay with Richie Porte last year was Sergio Henao.
Well, as we watch the peloton descend, the gap has come down to 55 seconds and we are approaching Wollonga for the last time. Then it's all uphill. That's it, confirmation. Jack Bauer's seen it. He knows it's going to happen, so you just got to stick to your guns here. 55 seconds. Again, just checks over his shoulder. Won't see anybody at this point. We're racing down to the left-hand turn to line up for Wollonga for the last time.
I just noticed they'd also pulled out to the neutral service vehicle. Psychologically, that's always a difficult time. And you know the writing's on the wall, because then all of a sudden you've got a clear road behind you. You look over your shoulder and there's this big mass of riders boring down upon you.
And the guys in front, they know what's happening. But the defiance of Jack Bauer, he's not going to make it easy for them to catch him. He said, I've been out here all day. I want to stay as long as possible. You look back on the bunch, and if you could look back and see who's on the front. Team Sky looks to me like it's Luke Rowe now on the front. Ian Stannard in his wheel. Team BMC still helping set the pace, but 5 Sky riders. Damien Howson up there as well.
And in 5th or 6th position, Geraint Thomas. Behind Geraint Thomas, it's Sebastian Henao. Behind him, it's Sergio Henao. And I just think because of all of the bad luck that Sergio Henao had, he would like to do a great performance on the slopes of this climb, because he's first of all thinking about a podium, but I think he's also trying to nurture a dream of winning this stage.
Well, and now last man standing behind Richie Porte last year. Richie looked back, went again and again and again, and just watched as Henao started to crumble in his wheel. Richie riding away to the win, but Henao, that burnt him, and he wants to make amends.
Well, Damien Howson's regained control on top of the Sky Boys. They'll be welcoming his pacemaking. The gap is now 45 seconds. They're going to see them on this straight road when they turn towards the finishing line in Wollonga. Long empty road for the riders. The hill will be the next challenge again. Then it literally is every man for himself. No shadow boxing, just the riders against the hill. They've just gone through the 10-kilometer marker. These 3 guys are only 6 miles from the finish.
40 seconds the gap now. When you look at the young Frenchman there, number 1, 2, 3, Jeremy Maison, you can see the shoulders bobbing along a little bit. He's a first-year professional. He doesn't yet have that strength that you get for 3 or 4 years as a professional in the legs.
Well, you see him much more slightly built too. His waist is not much wider than his saddle. You compare him to De Gent and especially Jack Bauer. It's the power difference that comes into play on the flat. He's really suffering in the wheel. As we look back, you'll see the gap is probably going to be no more than 400 metres between the break and the peloton now. I'd call that 403 metres.
Approximately. I'll tell you what, if they get to Wollonga, they'll be lucky, but they should get onto the climb at least before the riders reach them, which means not all the race is going to catch them if that's the case. Maybe De Gent can stay in amongst it on the climb. 9 kilometres to go. And still, it's still BMC, knowing that they're relying heavily on their race leader. There he is in the ochre jersey. Louis Menkes' team coming up on his shoulder. It's all action now, heading for Wollonga. Peloton are storming towards the last visit to the lovely little town of Wollonga. Then it's out up the road to the top of the Wollonga Hill. It's the showdown now. 8.5 kilometres to go. The peloton are breathing down the neck of the 3 breakaways. It's around about 35 seconds, but they haven't caught them yet.
Team Sky looking very well drilled, and I tell you what, they had a hard chase on day 2 when their leader Sergio Henao had not just 1 flat tyre, but he had 2 flat tyres and had to chase her for a good 20 kilometres to get himself back into the main field. And that's why I think he's been looking for a little bit of revenge to try and get himself the victory. And he also knows that he can perform well on Wollonga Hill, as he did just 12 months ago behind Richie Porte on that occasion.
Massive crowd. This is the swing now onto the approach to Wollonga itself. It's a straight road into town. A lovely, lovely crowd watching them sweep round. There's the road now, straight in, straight up, and it's all finished. But will they stay away? It's going to be touch and go. 35 seconds now, the gap.
Well, 35 seconds I don't think is enough on the slopes of this climb, because we're going to, I mean, when you look down the list of the riders that have been brought by most of these teams, there are so many great climbers, almost 3.5 hours in the saddle, and it's all coming down to 8 kilometres, but really it's more about the final 3 kilometres.
Here's that left-hand turn onto McLaren flat, and 35 seconds from this point, Our breakaway riders, I don't believe, will even make it onto the climb. Ian Stannard punching out the tempo on the front with Howson. Geraint Thomas up there in third wheel. They're not going to stay. Daryl Impey's getting involved now. Esteban Chavez, he's back there in about 8th, 9th position. He's on the wheel of Sergio Henao. So the Colombians, they've found each other. And it's just that nagging little crosswind. So they'll be going down this left-hand gutter as the wind blows in from Aldinga Beach.
The guys at the back really are suffering just to try and stay in contact. A big turn done. That Stannard now has swung off to the right-hand side. He's done his job. I'll tell you what, just trying to stick on the wheel of Ian Stannard is not a very easy thing. You've got two teams concerted here at the front. This is Orica Scott. Then you've got Luke Rowe coming forward once again. They're looking over their shoulders. They're trying to split the field in the slight crosswind.
I tell you what, Daryl Impey's doing huge turns here and mixing it with Team Sky. And you can hear the wind now. It's really pushing them to one side. If they can't hold the wheel, they're blown away.
And if it doesn't split, it's going to waste energy of a lot of riders who are stuck on the edge of the road. And I was just seeing the blue jerseys of Quick Step Floors. One of their riders just sitting further out to the right to give a little bit of a sit. They're looking after Gianluca Brambilla, stage winner in the Giro d'Italia, and also Enrico Mas. But Brambilla, I think, is going to be their man for the climb. They got one off the front, so they're not pushing the pace behind him. Just trying to keep safe, keep their man out of the wind.
Well, there is a slight split in about 25th to 30th position there. This is really scrambling time. It doesn't take much wind. There you can see Sergio now, but look at the man in the red jersey trying to stay up at the front, and that is Caleb Ewan. He leads the sprint competition, and he's doing everything he can to help his teammates.
This guy is amazing. He really has come of age in this event this week. Daryl Impey gritting his teeth and pushing on, checking in to make sure Chavez is tucked in nicely. This is the mass charge now, the cavalry heading to the foot of the old Wollonga Hill. That's where the battle will begin. He who can will, that's for sure. And look at Richie Port having to move up on his own. He hasn't got any teammates in front of him, making sure he's getting in the line. Orica are the boys pushing the pace.
Richie Port getting isolated here in Orica Green. You saw Simon Gerrans. He's the man that would call gatekeeper. He's telling the guys to swing in front. He's got Chavez in his wheel. They've got him at a perfect position. Caleb Ewan up there behind Chavez. Could be a little trick of his if he just started to lose the wheel and cause a split himself accidentally on purpose.
We've seen that happen many times before. Well, at least Richie Port has still got one teammate fairly close to him. That's number 21, a former winner of this bike race, and that is Rowan Dennis. Number 2 is right on the wheel of 41. That's Esteban Chavez, right on the wheel of his Geraint Thomas.
Yeah, he's
Luke
got the right
Durbridge.
wheel. But as Luke Durbridge has dropped back, he's riding superbly well. The way that they're setting this up, it's going to be literally a 1-2. Simon Gerrans and Chavez going to hit the base of this climb and see what they can do. Richie Port in a perfect position to see what they do. He's number 23, and behind him the former winner who beat Richie once 2 years ago in Johan. They're on the right. They've all been caught and washed away, sadly. Thomas again's gone back, and it's all together as we get to the foot of the climb. They've done it again. They brought the race back together. 5 kilometres to go. Daryl Impey still drives, keeps looking at Geraint Thomas. Not sure how much Geraint has got left in those legs.
The tough thing is when you put the pressure on the approach to the climb like this, so one or two of the climbers end up starting the climb in an asphyxiated condition.
Well, you can see what a drag this is. They've been in the red zone heart rate wise on that long straight road in the crosswind, so a lot of climbers, they'll be feeling as if they're already on the climb, where a guy like Esteban Chavez, he has been in the box seat keeping his heart rate as low as possible. Orica Scott have been planning this all day. Wait till the finals. The first time we've really seen them. But when they come, it's with serious ambition. Esteban Chavez, he is looking good. Richie Port didn't waste too much energy.
Now, we don't know how Gorka Izaguirre is feeling, but he's sprightly as he jumps out of the saddle. He's injured from that crash. He's bandaged all the way down one side of his body. And just look what his position here. He's had a rough ride.
Just stopped at the side of the road. Sorry about that. Just saw him pulling over.
Job done, but Gorka's right on the tail of the peloton, and that is not a good omen for him to hold his podium place.
Well, he's courageously leapfrogging past every rider that gets dropped. He's obviously still suffering from that crash that he had just a couple of days ago, but look at the length of that main field of riders. And yes, you want to try and bring your climber in a nice sheltered position to the start of the climb.
We go along the road, we see the crowd, we swing slightly left to watch out, because we go right up the mountain on your left to the very top, and that's where it ends, right on the pinnacle of the Wollonga Hill. This is going to be, as it always is, Robbie, a tremendous showdown.
It is going to be a massive showdown. We're just seeing Gorka Izaguirre there at the back of the bunch. He is on borrowed time. Such a long line, still dragging up. Was that Jack Bauer now riding on the front of the peloton?
It is Jack Bauer, and I'm like you. I couldn't believe I was looking at the image of Jack Bauer.
I knew it was, and I still questioned it. He's been in the break all day, but look what he's able to do for Gianluca Brambilla. It's a quick step floors leading through that corner. This is effectively the start of the climb. This is where the drag starts before it really kicks. Richie Port through there in about 10th wheel. The Skyriders with her now. Esteban Chavez, Rowan Dennis there. He is ready to do his job for Richie Port. And we're only a matter of 20 or 30 seconds, well, I think, from the first big explosion.
Bauer has cracked, but that looks like Brambilla on the front here for a quick step, which I think is a bit early if he's planning on something special. He's in the perfect position. Watch out for the lead-out men from the men in black here to bring up Ainau, Sergio. As they start the move now, Orica's still trying to keep control of this. I expect to see both Simon Gerrans and Chavez go for it. Still our man who holds second place. He's jumping around riders who are dropped, but he's injured and he's paid the price. And that's very sad to see. Gorka Izaguirre is not going to finish in the top 3 in this race as the pressure stays on at the front. Gerrans has taken control. Chavez is switching wheels now. He's seen the train come through from Team Sky as Kenny Ellison takes up the running for them.
Oh, Kelly and Asonda, the little Frenchman, 50-kilo ringing wet, a pure climber.
If he turns sideways, he's losing.
He's been told to go as hard as he can in his wheel. Sebastian and now, so they're winding up the pace, trying to put everybody in the red to prepare for the attack of Sergio now, who's now in the wheel of Richie Port. Chavez in third, Port in fourth wheel in the ochre jersey. Sergio now in his wheel, and from Dimension Data number 52 is Nathan Haas, holding 5th overall at the moment and trying to stay in contact. And look at them falling apart at the back now as the road kicks up.
Absolute chaos. Even Gerrans has gone this time around now. This is a battle between Port, Chavez and Sergi Ainau, and I think that's what Richie expected. They are 3rd, 4th and 5th in the line here.
Nathan Haas losing the wheel, giving a sling through to the quick step floors rider. That looks to me like Dries Devenens. Behind him, Domenico Pozzovivo, one of the riders from Bora, Jay McCarthy.
I have to marvel at Ellison because he wasn't in this race 9 days ago. He got a phone call to get out of training with Chris Froome in Queensland and get down to the start line because one of their riders on Sky had appendicitis. And now he's setting the pace up here, hopefully for Ainau.
Well, he said riding Tour Down Under will probably be easier than training with Froome. That was not an easy moment, but his work is done. Sebastian and now it's the Colombian Armada coming through. There goes Haas. He is being dropped. Goodbye to GC for him. Devenens goes out the back as well. Esteban Chavez in second wheel. Richie Port behind him. Sergio Ainau in 5th wheel. Pozzovivo, Jay McCarthy still there. And he's now moved on to the podium virtually because Izaguirre is gone.
Could be one up on last year if that's the way it's going to be. This is Sebastian Ainau who's setting the pace. Chavez is waiting in second place. He would love to show them how well he really can climb. 3rd and 2nd in 2 Grand Tours last year.
Rafael Valls from the Belgian Lotto team, the Spaniard at the back, and a definite split there now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sebastian are now causing the damage. Chavez, Port, and now Pozzovivo, Jay McCarthy, Rafael Valls. The winner of this stage will come for this group. Michael Woods, the Canadian from Cannondale in the background, trying to cross that gap as he now on the front starts to look around. He sees the damage, but he's looking around as if to say, somebody attack. I'm done.
Looks like Michael Woods trying to reach them, but I'm not sure he can get across this gap here. These guys are giving it everything, and still Port sits there watching, waiting. They've got to get him and they've got to gap him, otherwise he will win this race tomorrow in Adelaide, something he's never done. But let's not forget, Port has never been beaten up this climb for 3 years. Let's see how he goes now as they're tempting the riders to come out. Sebastian Ainau breaks clear.
And it's almost as if Chavez is daring them to attack. He let the wheel go. Sergio Ainau crossed wheels.
That was Jay. It wasn't. It was Jay McCarthy.
Yeah,
there.
Jay McCarthy's clipped out. Ainau was looking across. He clipped the wheel, and in turn, Jay McCarthy clipped him. And when you're at that sort of heart rate and the pace is going up, because look who's going at the front. Richie Porte is on the pedals.
Well, meanwhile, like it was last Wednesday on Paracombe, he's going to try and ride them off about a kilometre or slightly more in this case. But he's been marked at this time by Chavez. Now they're going to hold on for the moment.
Val's also going with him, and Porte goes again.
Porter's gone now. Who can go? Ainau's going to give it a shot. He's caught Chavez. Chavez can't reply. Rafael Valls can't reply. This is deja vu. The only difference, Robbie, today he wears ochre.
Well, he went last year on the tack trying to get time back. Today he said attack is the best defence. He's on the steepest part of the climb through these bends. It's about to kick up one more time, and this time, well, and now hasn't been able to follow him for 1 metre. Richie Porte is on the loose.
Richie Porte is climbing up here, the first ever Australian to win the Pyrenees cycle race. He's now going to finally have his big day in the Santos Tour Down Under. He has been the king of this hill for the last 3 years. Today it is almost a lap of honour for him. He's shown the best bike riders, some of the best climbers in the world, how to climb the Wollonga Hill. Tasmania will be out of their seats tonight.
Well, Phil, there's plenty of graffiti on this hill, the names of the riders, the big crown painted on the road. But this is a work of art by Richie Porte. He's got under the kilometre now. He's got the spray can out, and he started painting that big exclamation mark behind his win that he's going to get here in the Tour Down Under. Only disaster can stop him now, and now doing everything because he knows he can still move up on GC.
Sergio Ainau trying to climb out. Remember, he had bad luck. He had a double puncture on the road to Paracombe, and that cost him dearly as he was coming off Norton Summit. This man here, though, is going to lead this race by more than 30 seconds, but I think quite a lot more, in fact, because he will get a 10-second win bonus as well. Every time he looks over his shoulder, he's seeing the empty road now. Richie Porte can enjoy this, though you wouldn't think so looking at him just now. He must be feeling magical inside. The pursuit is on, but that's what it'll be all the way to the line.
And looking back behind Sergio now, well, Esteban Chavez, to conserve his podium place and try to move up to second place, he's got to stay in touch. Just 10 seconds the difference between Chavez and Ainau, so the podium place is being fought out, but the number one, head and shoulders, he's only a slight man. He's not that big, Richie Porte, but he's head and shoulders above this entire field.
Richie Porte knows what it's like to lose this race by 2 seconds. In fact, he's lost it twice. As he now, they're rejoined here. Chavez has got up nicely behind Ainau. He's recovered, and this man Chavez is climbing to second place overall in the race today. Jay McCartney will be up into third place overall. They come through the crowd now, and he's almost trying to smile at the same time, I think. Richie blistered to the crowd, bring him home. My goodness me. We've seen some atmosphere on this climb, but this is very, very special. The left turn into the line, the pain will end, a 10-second win bonus, a real-time gap. This man could be a minute ahead of the race by the time he crosses that line today. Tremendous. Richie Porte surely is going to give us the two-handed salute. Yes, he is. He is the champion of the Santos Tour Down Under elect. Tomorrow he will be crowned in Adelaide. The race for second place here as they come up to Nathan Haas is coming through. Don't know where he came from, but that's one heck of a ride by Nathan Haas. Chavez takes him on. That's a great ride by Nathan. Australia again, first and second, and Colombia across the line in third. Wow, Nathan Haas has shown great form all year since the championships. He got on the podium in the road race title. He was disappointed with third, and he's now come up this hill in second. There's the man of the moment. I can see Paul Sherwin down there, but he's rightly giving him just a second. He might be short of breath just now. Richie Porte is a star. He's being groomed for the Tour de France.
Well, Phil, with that finish, Esteban Chavez will move into second, and Nathan Haas will move into third overall, leapfrogging over Jay McCarthy and Izaguirre. What a ride!
Absolutely superb. This is the man, though, that saved it all till the last kilometre again. Then he went into overdrive. It's all over now. Boy, The boys will thank him tonight. They did a great job for him. I think we can go. There he is. There's the man who's going to win tomorrow the race. Let's join Paul Sherwin with him.
Well, Richie, today you really confirmed yourself as the king of Wollonga Hill, and winning in the ochre jersey today, did that make it just a little bit more special?
I tell you what, that hurt more than the other three that I've won up here. It was, you know, I went from quite a long way out, and you know, it's just incredible teamwork today, and I'm just happy to finish it off for the guys.
Talk about consolidating. I mean, even up to this morning, the 20-second advantage seemed large, but now you can ride more comfortably tomorrow on the streets of Adelaide.
Yeah, I mean, it's that street circuit in Adelaide. It's not easy. I mean, anything can happen there too. So I'm happy with where I'm at the moment. You know, I put some good time into the other guys, and you know, I think it'll make tomorrow maybe a little bit more relaxed for us.
And what does a win like this today at the top of the climb in the ochre jersey do for your confidence going forward to the rest of this season?
Yeah, I mean, this is not an easy climb, so to win it, it's you know, great for morale. Obviously, for me, the biggest goal this year is July, the Tour de France. So things are going well.
Well done.
Thank you.
Things are going well. I think they probably are, Rob.
Master of the understatement.
Gee. But he gave it his best shot. It all worked out. He scalped the rest of the field there on that climb. Got to feel a little bit sad for Boca Izagirre. The team tried to put him in the right place, but the crash obviously made it a little bit too difficult for him. Let's go through it again, Rob. This was the move. He looked at the field. Chavez was right there, ready to go with him.
You look at Richie Porte when he went, initial acceleration was like a tester just to see what would happen to the rest when he accelerated. But that was just feeling things out because it didn't take long. Look at that. Bang on the pedals and the gap immediately opened. Chavez can't get out of the seat and now saw it happening, knew what needed to be done. Didn't get closer than about 8 metres to him, and Richie Porte then eased away. And now straight back in the seat, and that telltale look over the shoulder. The race was over right there. Richie Porte said this morning, I want to win this. Well,
I guess he did.
What a way to do it.
4 years in a row, he's conquered Wollonga Hill first. This one, though, in the ochre jersey. I'm very excited to see what his final overall lead will be, because it's going to be significant now. It's going to go up amongst one of the biggest winning margins tomorrow in the history of this race, actually. But we'll take a look at it when it's all confirmed, which takes a little while to get the guys over to the podium. Richie Porte on top in ochre. While we wait for the riders to get over to the podium.
Super Saturday at the Santos Tour Down Under, and what a race it was. We had huge crowds. 151.5k, the longest of all the stages from McLaren Vale to Wollonga Hill, thanks to Bike Exchange. Beautiful, beautiful scenery, and what a beautiful, beautiful result. Richie Porte, absolutely outstanding. After winning 3 times here, he makes it 4. It was just an extraordinary day.
Richie Porte, he owns this hill, but the way he did it today, he went out as leader. He only needed to defend, and when no one was willing to attack, he thought, well, I'm going to light this race up myself. He had a bit of a feeler attack. He said, I can do some real damage here, and he went again, and that time for real. But what a performance. Behind him, they were decimated.
And when you think of, I just think that the riders behind him today, there was such depth in this field, and he knew what he had to do. Really, to win this race, he could have ridden defensively today, but he just wanted to show that little bit of panache and win up here. I mean, 4th time in a row. I mean, I'm gobsmacked.
Oh, look, the weather was beautiful, set beautiful from the moment we got here. Down in McLaren Vale, all the views of the water, and the racing was spectacular as well. Let's have a look at the highlights.
Yes, well, it was a great start for the riders this morning. They started in McLaren Vale. The gun went off, given by the Minister for Sport, Tourism. And as you see, it got off to a very quick start very early on, and that's normally the case there, but it took a while, Robbie, really, before the breakaway got itself established.
It did, but if I could have put my money on anyone to get in the break, it would have been Thomas de Gendt wearing the Subaru King of the Mountains jersey. He knew he had to get up Wollonga the first time in front and take the points to put himself in contention of winning that jersey. He's now equal on points with Richie Porte, so they'll sprint it out tomorrow in Adelaide. He got out there. A surprise to see him out there again was Jack Bauer, the Kiwi, who put on such a tough performance yesterday, caught shortly before the finish, but out there driving the break along with Will Clark and the Frenchman Maison from the FDJ team.
Beautiful venue, the Aldinga Beach and Snapper Point, quite remarkable. There were time bonuses in the early part of the race, but the 4 riders in the leading breakaway, they weren't too concerned about that, and when they came up to them, they didn't really sprint to go through and chase for those points. But behind, the peloton all day were pretty much controlled by Team BMC, who kept that gap hovering between 1.5 minutes and 2.5 minutes, as if they were acting like a well-organised orchestra.
Yeah, they were just well in control of the situation. They let them have 2 minutes, and it hovered around just under and just over that for most of the stage. And all the pacemaking in the bunch was done by Francisco Ventoso, the teammate of Richie Porte, the Spaniard, more of a classic specialist, but a strong man who can just ride hours on end on the front of the bunch. As we got further into the race and going around Aldinga Beach again, the pace started to pick up in that front group because they started to get a sniff of the finale, the mountain points, but also starting to think a little bit about the finish.
Yeah, that was interesting because it was at that point when they started to head back away from the coastline and back into Wollonga that Jack Bauer and Thomas de Gendt all of a sudden started to say, hey, we got a chance here, we can survive. Their only goal really, Robert, we've got to be honest about this, was to survive over the top of that climb. Except when they got to the top of the climb, it looked as if maybe they were starting to take an option on the stage victory as well.
They were. Once they got over the top and they thought, well, we've still got 2 minutes, there's absolutely no reason in the world not to pin the ears back and go. They hit the climb. They offloaded Will Clark, the Aussie Tasmanian from the Cannondale Drapac team. The other 3, de Gendt on the front, Maison second wheel, and Jack Bauer pushed on up Wollonga Hill and maintaining a pretty good gap over the peloton, which was being set at a fairly reasonable tempo by Damiano Caruso, another teammate of Richie Porte. As they came through the King of the Mountain, it was Thomas de Gendt picking up the maximum points to put himself in a strong lead in that jersey. Richie Porte, however, he cruised the first time over Wollonga Hill.
Yes, but on the descent, we got one glimpse of our motorbike touching 90 kilometres an hour, but I'm pretty certain in the main field behind they exceeded 100 kilometres an hour going down here. Once they got back down onto McLaren Flats and heading towards the final ascent of Wollonga, well, the main field had them in their sights. It came to 30 seconds, 50 seconds, but different teams then suddenly started to come forward. And probably for the first time in the whole day, we suddenly saw Orica Scott.
And Orica Scott, they smelt an opportunity not just to go for the stage win, move up on GC, but to do some damage to the peloton. A slight breeze coming in from the right, enough to cause small splits. But what a ride from Jack Bauer. He led the peloton to the bottom of Wollonga after that. Team Sky taking over. Sebastian Henao, he is in service of Sergio Henao. Esteban Chavez sitting back. We thought the Colombians would go on the attack. When they couldn't, well, Richie Porte just went to the front and said, well, I'll get things started all by myself.
Talk about confidence. This man exudes confidence this year. He looked over his shoulder and said, well, I know how to handle this race, and he went out on the attack. And when he went through the King of the Mountains points, he looked over his shoulder and he could see he already had a very fine gap, and he had the time and the opportunity on this occasion to give a wonderful two-handed salute in victory.
Yeah, what a result. What a fairy tale result as we watch the super slow-mo of Richie Porte going over the line there. He missed by seconds last year and 2 seconds the year before. He's been so close. We've said he's always, in recent times, been the bridesmaid, although he's won Wollonga Hill. Well, today he's crossed it in Oka. He will wear Oka tomorrow, and he's going to be crowned the 2017 Santos Tour Down Under champion.
He will. He really has an unassailable lead in the Santos Tour Down Under. But it's all about the stage win tomorrow, and attention will swing back to the sprinters. Just a note on this stage, apart from Richie Porte, ride of the day, Nathan Haas from Dimension Data. He was dropped early, came back, finished second on the stage. He's now onto the podium overall.
Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing, let's not forget that Richie Porte will not start celebrating until he gets through the final lap on the circuit around Adelaide tomorrow, because he knows more than anybody possibly that Lady Luck can be hiding around a corner and dish out some bad luck to riders, and that's probably the only thing that could
rob him of victory in this year's Santos Tour Down Under.
Yeah, he's 99% chance of winning it, though, isn't he? We're going to put perspective on it. What about Caleb Ewan tomorrow? Look, he's an odds-on favourite to win it. Again today, we saw what sort of teammate he is, helping out the boys on the front.
Yeah, well, Caleb Ewan, he's been a great teammate this week. He's been getting the work done when he's had the responsibility to win the stage. That low slung down over the handlebars, super aerodynamic, high speed winning sprints. And when he hasn't been doing that, he's been doing everything he can to help his teammates. We saw him on stage 2 riding on the front. We saw him on the approach to Wollonga Hill helping the team out. But tomorrow it's back on him. He's won 3. He's going for 4 in 1 Santos Tour Down Under, and there's no reason he can't become the 3rd rider to achieve that 4 out of 6 at the Santos Tour Down Under. He's been taking Peter Sagan on all week and coming out on top.
I mean, again, we talked about the confidence of Richie Porte. This man this year exudes confidence as well, and it's his 3-stage victories out of 5. He will be looking to make it 4 tomorrow, but that style, I don't think anybody in the main field can imitate that style at all. It makes him very aerodynamic, and he's pushing speeds, just by the way, if you're interested, close to 74, 75 kilometres an hour in the straight when he hits top speed.
Yeah, there's been some outstanding performances right throughout the course of the week. Cadel Evans obviously did it a few years ago. Now we're watching guys like Richie Porte and sprinters like Caleb Ewan, but there's also a Kiwi that we can't forget, Jack Bauer, absolutely unbelievable. He's been our Bolle Player of the Day today.
Yeah, well, he's again the most aggressive rider in this field. To get himself off the front and hold it as long as he did yesterday, but then to go and back it up again today, that's absolutely Player of the Day, hands down.
Yeah, you wouldn't go with anyone else, would you, Paul? Because basically the Bolle Player of the Day is Jack Bauer, and what he did was he got out there and he really was the engine room of that breakaway, and then he came back and helped them.
Well, I think the important thing to note was he was wearing an aerodynamic skin suit today, and he dragged the Frenchman Jeremy Maison into that breakaway group because he thought they might just survive.
Yeah, Jack Bauer, absolutely wonderful today, and a very well-deserved winner of the Bolle Player of the Day. We're going to get to the podium in just a tick. Vale to Wollonga Hill Bike Exchange Stage 5 of the Santos Tour Down Under, and Richie Porte, well, he was the king again. Tomorrow we're on the streets of Adelaide. It's going to be fast, it's going to be furious. Let's have a look at that track map.
Well, it is. It's all based downtown. It's based on King William Street, and the difficulty, I think, when we think about the route tomorrow, is the fact that they've got Montefiore Hill, and there will be a big battle for superiority in the King of the Mountains competition, because Thomas Kent and Richie Porte are locked on the same number of points.
Well, there's always a race within the race when we get down to Adelaide on the last day. Sprint points, mountain points. I think De Kent will be the only one sprinting for them. Richie Porte, I don't think he's too bothered with the King of the Mountain, but you never know. He's dominated so far. Why not for one more time? But this course in the centre of Adelaide, criterium style, but let's call it a circuit race because it is 5 kilometres around. Montefiore Hill, 2 times it's a KOM, but they do, of course, punch up there every single lap. But it's such a fast finish up King William Road, a rising finish. Caleb Ewan, the winner there last year, and again the favourite for tomorrow to make it 4 stages out of 6 this week.
Yeah, look, Richie Porte, he mentioned in the interview with you, Paul, about his big goal in July. He'd have to be in the top handful of riders in the world right at the moment. You say if he didn't have that thing go wrong, he would have come second last year. Can this be the year that we get a second winner in the Tour de France?
I think it's very possible that we could see another Australian win the Tour de France, and it would be quite strange to think by the fact that he's actually riding for the same team as Cadel Evans, Team BMC. And I just think that he's got the confidence now. And the big advantage he's got is for many years he was the teammate of the guy who's won the Tour de France 3 times in a row, 3 times, Chris Froome.
I think at the moment he is likely. I mean, last year, yes, he would have been second, but that's a woulda, coulda, shoulda. But this year, I think he's taken another step up and he's ready to win a Grand Tour.
Yeah, to give perspective to those that aren't completely all over cycling, this guy's an out-and-out world superstar.
He is. He's only a little man, but he's got a massive engine. That's a 5-litre V8 pumping underneath that jersey by Richie Porte, and he knows how to do it now. He's started as absolute leader, and now there's not even a backup, so a little bit of pressure, but that adds to confidence as well, the trust that the team puts in him.
That, I think, Tim, is the difference between BMC of last year and BMC of this year going forward to the Tour de France. Last year they went in with 2 leaders. TJ Van Garderen was one of the leaders, and Richie Porte. This year it's all about Richie Porte.
Richie Port, what an absolute superstar. He's the king of Wollonga Hill. He's done it 4 times in a row. It is time to get down to the podium and see the jerseys go on. Let's get there.
Looking down at the area now of the prize presentation, we've seen a great show defined by Richie Port. So the winner is going to come out on stage. For the 4th year in a row, this man has come out on stage as the winner of the Wollonga Hill. He's got enough for a canteen, for a dinner service now. The lovely plate it is too of the Fleurieu Peninsula. But for the first time, he will pull on the ochre jersey again as leader of the race. He's never done that before on this hill. Let's have a look at the standings now. Richie Port leads this race by 48 seconds, one of the biggest margins we've had in the 19 years history. Nathan Haas, brilliantly inspired, has come up into 3rd place. Jay McCartney, despite all the juggling, holds 4th place, where he finished a year ago. And Diego Ulissi did really well to come up into 5th today. The Italian, he won in Stirling on one occasion. Rowan Dennis in 6th, the former winner. Robert Hessing comes up into 8th. And Nathan Earl, the young Australian there, getting in the top 10 overall after another inspired climb towards the finish. Now it should be back down to the podium now. And see the man to pull on the ochre leader's jersey, a race. He has led it for 4 of the 5 days. Leon Bignell, the Minister of Tourism and Sport, whose government really stands behind this race for the people here in South Australia, congratulates him warmly. The ochre jersey for Richie Port. He's won the white jersey in the Giro d'Italia. He was the first Australian to win Paris-Nice, and tomorrow he's going to be the next person from Australia to win the Santos Tour Down Under. Well done, Richie Port.
Oh, the supreme brilliance and beauty of this stage. Richie Port, the king of Wollonga Hill. He's done it again. The Santos Tour Down Under Bike Exchange Stage 5. That's where we are. We're right on the finish line. And the crowds have been enormous.
Oh, the crowds have been fantastic this whole race, but particularly today on Wollonga Hill. And not just at the top, but all the way up it, all the way around Aldinga Beach, right the way through McLaren Vale. The crowds have been fantastic, and it gives the riders a real boost. And the crowds have been treated to some exceptional racing.
I think that's what's the interesting point when we talk to the riders from overseas when they come here. They just cannot believe the support and the friendly support that they get from the side of the road, and encouraging support, and I think that's why they always want to come back.
Yeah, it was a warm day and a perfect day for a great day of racing. Huge crowds, look at them. It's an absolute sea of people, and it was like that from the start in McLaren Vale all the way to Wollonga Hill. Richie Port, absolutely brilliant today. He has been crowned the king again, but this time he was wearing a different coloured jersey. He was in ochre, Richie Port. We'll be back with more after this. Oh, there was a Tasmanian tiger, not extinct today. He's done it, Richie Port, up Wollonga Hill, stage 5 of the Santos Tour Down Under. Just brilliant, and he's a very, very likeable guy as well. Arms in the air, and it always makes it extra special when there's such an affable human being.
Yeah, he is. He's been cool, calm and collected all week, and supremely confident. But when he blew everyone away on stage 2, well, we knew that confidence was well founded. We hadn't seen him before the Santos Tour Down Under. No preparation race at National Championships, but I'd say he would have been training hard in Tassie in preparation for this.
He certainly had, but tomorrow we've got to turn the books around, because it's a different kind of rider who's going to come out, and a different kind of race as well, because it's turning it over to the sprinters, the gladiators of the route, the men who take crazy risks. And I just keep wondering, as we show off downtown Adelaide and we see the crowd here, the crowd is still leaving this finishing area here. We had over 102,000 people in the People's Choice Classic to begin with. I wonder how many people are going to be in Adelaide downtown tomorrow.
Oh yeah, we get huge crowds. It's always a great day, the final day of the Santos Tour Down Under, and he's won so much so far this week you'd think Caleb Ewan wants to do it again. Let's have a look at the highlights of stage 6 in years gone by.
Philippe Gilbert brings them into the home straight now. This is going to be a rip-roaring sprint here now. As they come up towards the line, this is going to be a very difficult sprint, but Cook has got the lead. Now can Robbie McEwen get round him here as they battle shoulder for shoulder? He's had a perfect lead out by his team, and he's going to finish it off, and he gets it on the line.
They're up now towards the finishing straight, taking the final bend of the race, and you can see now the acceleration is starting to get open. Stuart O'Grady now goes right the way through the middle. It looks as if O'Grady's got the jump on everybody here, but look on the left-hand side in the blue, that's Robbie McEwen coming up towards the line. McEwen is the one who lunges, and McEwen is the one who gets win number 3 here. That makes this his 11th stage victory over the years.
As they now line up for the finish, and Robbie McEwen is now coming up with tremendous lead out, and his brakes on the right here, and this looks like Alan Davis has gone for it. Davis is run, Robbie McEwen is coming through, the bobbing and weaving, and McEwen right on the barriers. Wow, that was a sprint. This is going to be an absolute ripper for the line. Now look at the launching of the attack, and Robert Foster has kicked off from nowhere here. He's come right to the back. Greipel is having a go at him as they hit the line. Greipel has got 4 wins this week, but they've got their hands full here now. Brown is coming dead centre. This could be a big win for him, but also and on the line, and it looks as though it might be a Kiki who has taken that for leaky gas as they line up for the finishing sprint now. Well, I think they've gone far too soon, Team Sky. They've made this from Graham Brown, but they've got it. They've hit it on the line. It is Chris Sutton who has beaten Henderson. As the lead out starts for the line now, and over the top, Sky have got this if they can hold the pace all the way to the line. They've got it 1-2 on the line. Now they're opening up full bore, but watch out because this is a run by Mark Renshaw. Renshaw has hit him earlier, gone over the top. Greipel is going to steal its win at number 100.
And we're getting ready for a huge sprint in Adelaide.
Wouter Whippet is moving up on the right of the picture here now. Hausler's trying to get through in that yellow jersey. It's going to be desperately close on the line. Wouter Whippet has done it over Hausler. They are flying now, and they've swamped over the top of Caleb Ewan. He is still not panicking, as we've also got Skies trying to go, and Caleb Ewan is braking on the right of the picture. Nizzolo dives for his back wheel, but the pocket rocket has just exploded the field. He makes it look just too easy.
Yeah, he did it last year. Will he do it again tomorrow? You would expect he would, Caleb Ewan, if all things go his way. The Be Safe, Be Seen Max Stage 6 of the Santos Tour Down Under. It's a mad, furious dash around the streets of Adelaide. So make sure you're watching. Of course, you have all the opportunities to get on board. And Robbie, I didn't know you were an editor. I thought you cut the first part of that package.
Yeah, they let me get in there and put a couple of things. And I at least got to choose. I got no editing skills, but I said, pick that one and that one, please.
Oh, look good.
I tell you what, though, Robbie, what you got to think about the fact that as a sprinter, racing in front of crowds like that, it's just the added little bit of motivation.
It gives you a massive rev, and I expect to see another 100,000 people out there tomorrow. That's like a full MCG.
Yeah, and it's elbow to elbow, isn't it? Not only in the crowd, but out in the middle.
Oh, absolutely, and we've seen some fantastic onboard footage from this week. Guys pushing and shoving, getting into position, and that's what makes it so fun to watch. So I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's stage.
I was going to say it's a little bit more than elbow to elbow. Sometimes it's elbow and head to shoulder. So it's a rip-roaring battle to get into position to get the victory. And you know, when we saw that victory by Caleb Ewan, I wonder if he's casting his mind back 12 months and wondering if he can do it again. If he wins tomorrow, it'll be his 4th stage victory out of 6.
Who can beat him?
Well, they can all beat him technically. It's still a race to be run, but Caleb Ewan, he is the out-and-out favourite. You've seen he just had too much explosive power, the aerodynamics and the race now. So I love his decision-making and his instinct he's used in the sprints to outdo a guy as good as 2-time world champion Peter Sagan.
Well, Peter Sagan is a guy who really likes to play to the crowd, and I've just got he's been knocking on the door all week, and let's not forget, he's a professional. He's been a professional for 7 years now, and having got 6 days of racing under his legs, maybe, I mean, he is a showman after all. What a day it would be. I mean, I'd love Caleb Ewan to win number 4, but what a day it would be to have
the world champion win on the final day.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Rob. Well, that will happen tomorrow, the sprint around Adelaide. Today, it was all about Richie Porte. He was absolutely brilliant, majestic on the Queen stage of the Santos Tour Down Under. He wore ochre on the way up. He is wearing ochre tonight. This is what we come here for. It's the greatest stage in Australian cycling. From all of us here at Channel 9's Wide World of Sports, bye for now.